Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call today's meeting of the Reno City Council Redevelopment Agency Board to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and let's have Mr. Dene lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Acting Mayor. Breckus? Dewar?
Here.
Delgado? McKenzie? Jardin absent. Bobzine?
Here.
Sheevy absent. Mr. Acting Mayor, you do have a quorum of the Reno City Council.
Okay, thank you. A3, public comment. Do we have any public commenters for today?
We do. Our first public comment is from Tammy Holt-Still, followed by Sam Dene.
Tammy Holt-Still, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. The water's still there. I'm still here for the record. I'd like to start off by stating for the record that our committee and myself are not part of the lawsuit in Lemon Valley against the city of Reno. I'd like to thank you, Councilman Dewar, for helping me on Friday to try and make a difference out there. It didn't work, but thank you for trying. And it is not your fault. It is definitely the fault of your council manager or your city manager, Newby, and Mayor Sheevy, as far as I can see. I have reached out as a concerned citizen, but have been dismissed and not responded to, except for Mr. Flansburgh's staff, Brian Heller, stating, it's the county's responsibility, even though it's you, the city, that are pumping city property from a vacant property, Prado Ranch, back into Swan Lake, and with the press or with the stating that it's for opening Lemon Drive. I don't think so. Here is what I reached out about. Prado Ranch, number 4. As you can see right there, it states no, they are not in a 100-year floodplain. This is something that I have reached out about, and since I can't seem to get a response, I'm bringing it out into the open this way, which is not the way I wanted to do it. I tried working within your guys' guidelines, and you didn't want to assist. They are also working around FEMA, trying to get out of the floodplain. Now, does the city of Reno have a license to pump this effluent water back over into Swan Lake? Does the city of Reno really need to add another bump that's going to create that on Lemon Drive, where people are doing 45 miles an hour? Does the city of Reno really have the right to create flooding on other residents? This is Shane Way. As you can see, there's the water right there. That was Good Friday. This was on Monday. The water is all the way up to those right there. And why is it, if you're going to pump property, why aren't you pumping the property that is really affecting residents? This is between Arkansas and Theodore. I don't appreciate your attitude. I don't appreciate being dismissed, and I would appreciate something being done for the residents and ignoring what really is happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dene?
Sam Dene, the heart and soul and the body and mind of Reno government. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I've provided more testimony throughout this state, city, county than all the citizens added together. Today is the 10th anniversary of the beloved baseball stadium. Back in the day when it was very controversial, who was the person who supported it more than all the rest of the people added together? Sam Dene, me. It's on the record, anywhere you want to look. Have I ever been thanked? No. I'm never thanked for anything. Have I ever even been invited to a game? No. I have never been to that stadium. I don't want to go to the stadium. This is my stadium right here. Right here is my stadium for 25 years throughout the community. And every time I come into this stadium, I have 5 walk-off homers and 3 perfect games. Does anybody want to challenge that? I'm responsible for more of the good things about Reno than all the other citizens added together, from Burning Man all the way up to nominating our chief of police, Jason Soto, who the media wacko freaks hate down in the bellies of their pantyhose. Why did I nominate Jason Soto? I didn't even know the man, but I saw the support he got back in the day from all the other policemen. And the main reason I support him, the main reason is because the media hates him. The media hates him down to their bones, and they also despise law enforcement. Our Reno Gazette does not like law enforcement. I've been here. There's a policeman over there. He can come up and deny it if he wants, and he knows he can't because they do. The Reno Gazette does not like law enforcement. Did I say that emphatically enough? They do not like law enforcement. The only thing they dislike and fear more than law enforcement is guess who? Guess what? Sam DNA, me, Air Force Academy graduate, who has nothing but the welfare of Reno in his heart. Everything I do is philanthropic, everything I do. Now we got the election coming up. All of you marijuana, all of you people who are enjoying marijuana, whether it be medical or recreational, always doing it with a designated driver in the proper instances, all of you people up there who enjoy your marijuana, thousands and thousands and thousands of you should be voting for DEHNE. That is the person, DEHNE is the person who brought marijuana to Reno. They were dragging their feet. All the governments were dragging their feet. I said, bring it to Reno, let's do it. They finally put it on the agenda. They started walking on through, and now it's legal, and everybody's enjoying it. Not everybody. Did everybody understand that? You vote. If we have an honest vote count, and these people are generally proof that we do not always have an honest, some of these people are proof we do not always have an honest vote count. But if there's an honest vote count, this man who was the challenger against the mighty Cashel 6 years ago should be the new mayor of Reno. DEHNE. Brought marijuana to Reno and many, 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 many other things. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome out in TV land.
A4, approval
Thank
of the
you.
agenda.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve and a second. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. B1, staff report, presentation, discussion, and potential direction to staff regarding the core services and strategic plans for the future of each department, including potential program change requests for fiscal year 18-19 for the city of Reno.
Thank you, Councilmember Bob Zine, acting mayor, I believe. For the record, Saber Smith Newby, city manager. As you may recall, this is now our 3rd meeting regarding the budget, and we are working through the various departments and their presentations on their plans for the next year and their core services. This is sort of the extra additional meetings that we had set up for you based on your feedback that you did want more information on departments and budgetary issues going into this. I will remind everyone we are working and projecting a structural deficit heading into the next fiscal year. As a result, obviously some of these requests that you have before you will be limited in what is able to be funded, but just wanted to give you that preface going into it. We have a number of the departments here. Some of them, I think we are missing a director or two, so we may have to hold over, but hopefully we can get through the rest of it today. And then I will remind you that we have your regularly scheduled budget workshops as well coming up. Yes, ma'am.
So we have these 3, and then you have already done a brief visit with us before I think you got started, as if I recall, although that was like in February timeframe or something. Are you going to come back, do you think? And, how do we, a few months have gone on since we started this process, let me put it that way. And as months go on, things evolve, ideas evolve, new imperatives come to the fore. I just wondered, when would it be best for you? Is it at this meeting or some other time to communicate some of those things that, are, a revisit or whatever you want to call it?
I believe that maybe a future meeting would be probably best. What I'd
best
like
time?
to do is give the same consideration to these departments that was given to
Right.
the ones before.
Exactly.
And then circle back with you based on some of the input that we're receiving with the presentations that we've heard so
Okay.
far and then today. I've also been working with staff on some thoughts on budget trimming, and so we'd like to present those to you as well as some thoughts on what could be funded and get your feedback on that. So I'd
Okay.
look at that in a future meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Debbie Lochner, our Director of Finance. Thank you.
Hi. So Deborah Lochner, Director of Finance. We're here today. I'm going to go through this a little quickly to get back up to where we were. Our first department today, we're going to be talking about communications and community engagement, and then we'll go from there.
And if I could chime in, Mr. Acting Mayor, before staff begins, as a reminder to council, there are only 4 of you present at this moment. If you can be cognizant of that before getting up, thank you.
Ready? Council manager, good morning, I guess. I'm Matt Brown, Communications Program Manager, for the record, filling in today for Director Rebecca Venus. I will be providing an overview of services and strategic priorities for the Office of Communications and Community Engagement, also known as OCCE. Communications and community engagement are at the heart of the City of Reno's vision, mission, and strategic priorities. Our department is responsible for all inbound, outbound, and internal communications for the city. This includes community engagement, constituent services, crisis communications, marketing, media relations, social media, website management, and video production. Our region is growing, and as we look at communications, we must be mindful that our citizen base is diversifying. As technology changes, we will be looking for more efficient and effective tools to reach all segments of our population. Our department supports the city's strategic priorities by informing and engaging citizens, employees, media, and the Reno City Council, ensuring responsive communication to and from the City of Reno, enhancing city services through public input, and building trust with the community through increased transparency. This slide depicts OCCE's areas of responsibility and program focuses. We are focused on communicating to 4 target audiences. 1, the community at large. 2, City of Reno employees. 3, news media. And 4, Reno City Council. We facilitate communications to these audiences through 4 key program areas. 1, strategic communications. This team utilizes public affairs, marketing, and graphic design to disseminate information. 2, community engagement. Our community liaisons develop and maintain relationships between the city and its citizens. This occurs through outreach programs like the Neighborhood Advisory Boards, citizen education programs such as the Reno Citizens Institute, and several council member outreach initiatives. 3, digital engagement. The information and content provided by the communications and engagement teams are largely facilitated through electronic platforms such as websites, intranet, social media, and e-newsletters. These are maintained within our digital engagement program. 4, Reno Direct, which is our citizen service center. They are not just a call center. This group utilizes phone, email, online chat, and other tools to manage requests, inquiries, and complaints from residents. Our citizen service representatives are the central point of contact for citizens for all city services. OCCE's primary strategic goal for fiscal year 18-19 is to enhance and improve two-way communications with our target audiences. This goal will be achieved by focusing on 6 key strategies. 1, measuring the effectiveness of our current communication tools. This includes analyzing social media engagement and monitoring website traffic and email open rates, to name a few. One key area of focus is Reno Direct. At its peak, Reno Direct had 5 citizen service reps, and now it has just 2. Last year, this group handled more than 48,000 communications. That's almost 200 per day or 25 per hour. This number grows about 3% per year and will continue to do so with our growing population and community. 2, engage and inform our target audiences with a focus on diversity. As technology changes and our community diversifies, we must make sure we are using the most effective and cost-efficient tools available. Identifying tools to reach all segments of our community are important. We are currently focusing resources on 2 segments of the population. The first being citizens with disabilities and providing improved access to all digital platforms. This includes website and video accessibility and compliance, including closed captioning for public meetings such as this one today. As many of you know, just over a year ago, we launched our Latino Outreach Program, which utilizes Spanish communications and community outreach. Following our successful launch, we will focus on expanding this program as our Latino community continues to grow along with the rest of our community. 3, enhance and improve media relations. Now that we are fully staffed, we are focused on implementing an even more proactive approach to media relations and partnering with media outlets. We want to make sure we are getting out the information our citizens need as quickly and as often as possible. This includes activities such as utilizing our editorial calendar and in-house production to develop content and continuing to work on innovative content distribution. 4, develop programs that increase transparency and participation. Working with our citizens to encourage engagement and feedback is a priority for our department. This includes making sure that our current methods for gathering input, such as surveys, are efficient and strategic. We will also look for new and innovative ways to gather input. Examples include finding a consistent survey system that saves the collected data for comparison and future use, growing the community engagement fair, which was introduced at the recent 2018 State of the City and drew more than 300 citizens, and continued development of our existing citizen and business recognition programs. 5, enhance and improve internal communications. For example, we introduced a weekly bulletin email this fiscal year to keep employees informed of city news and activities. We will continue to partner with HR on programs to improve the culture and boost organizational pride. And lastly, develop a formal media training program. This year, we will implement continual media training for all City of Reno spokespeople. Training curriculum will be focused on the various department areas of expertise and will be provided throughout the year. Before I conclude, I wanted to leave you with some interesting department stats. There are more than 1 million visitors annually to Reno.gov. The City of Reno has about 88,000 followers on social media, more than 40,000 of those on Twitter alone. We distribute roughly 175 press releases a year. We respond to an average of 60 media inquiries per month. We also organize several major PR events. Thousands came out for the Virginia Street Bridge opening, and hundreds attended the Space Whale dedication and our most recent State of the City event. Those are just a few examples. Some of the exciting events citizens can look forward to later this year are the 150th birthday celebration at Greater Nevada Field, the grand opening of Trainer Pool, and the Reno Arch Refresh Project unveiling. That concludes my overview, and I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, do we have any questions from the council? Councilman Dorr.
Sure. My questions have to do with transparency and also with Reno Direct, just for starters. And first, I want to just say that, I feel like I've had a great relationship with your group. You work very directly with us, between the liaisons and yourself, scheduling media things. And I really do think you guys do a great job. So my questions have to do with Reno Direct. Let's start with that. I get calls from, or communications, let's say, from constituents, and they'll say, I called Reno Direct, and or I sent something in on email or whatever, and I didn't get an answer. They just sent me something back saying it was closed out. And what I'm wondering is if in this next year we could consider improving our communications off of a form. I think it's like, well, we're done. We can't do any more. We're checking a box. We're closing this out. And I just wondered if you could think about, not on the moment, but just think about some ways that they could, when they are closing stuff out or saying, we've done everything we can do. We're done at this time. If there's a way that we could deliver that message in a different kind of way, besides a form email, that kind of thing. So I think that would go a long way, because Reno Direct itself is fantastic. I feel like so great. I give the number out to everyone. People call in. Often, their information will be forwarded on to a staff member and it'll get worked on, and that's great. But sometimes there's just nothing more we can do. And that's when they get frustrated, right? Because they're counting on us to do something. So I would just ask you to look at that. That's just an area for potential. And then on the transparency and things like you mentioned, the Reno Arch, where I get a little worried sometimes is decision-making by public opinion vote on a SurveyMonkey kind of thing. I mean, it's fine. We're doing a couple of those right now. We have the flag going, which is fine. I mean, that's about appearances. What do you like better? I mean, that's a subjective judgment. You asked about the arch. Would you think it'd be better traditional style or blue and white or blue and silver? And still, though, we have to make a decision, and it's not just we just all vote. I mean, we're not like on TV station, vote in on some hot topic and tell us what you think. I don't think any of us are, we're very thoughtful people up here. So I just think if you're doing those things, that there needs to be expectations placed, that the citizens don't think that if they vote, 2 more people vote for this than that, that's what we're going to do. And I don't know how to manage those expectations off those public opinion surveys. We want the public opinion. If it's pretty close, that's good enough for me. I just say, our community's kind of equally divided, and it's up to us. It's not like 2 more points were here. Do you see what I'm saying? But I don't know if they see it that way. For example, the flag's coming up. I've given in my vote to, like the others. We've been asked to vote, but we may choose none. That's an option. You wrote right on that one. For example, you said the option might be we don't go with any of these designs because we don't know what's going to happen right at the meeting. So I think that is a good example of a place where you did that. And I just want to see maybe more of that. And then I guess lastly, you've said about 4 times through here, increased transparency. And I wondered, what does that mean to you or the department?
I think that it has to go along with our, as I said earlier, we'd like to be more proactive. So what that means is rather than reacting to questions from media or citizens, we're pushing messages out. So it's simply just informing the community about more things that are happening at the city community-wide, rather than always just being in that reactive mode.
Well, I'll tell you another terrific thing that you do that I've been able to utilize, and that's after we have the council meeting, you do the council highlights. And I've been able to take some of that messaging and put it in other medias, whether it's Twitter, as you mentioned, Facebook, or other social media. And there's a lot of people that don't get that. They don't get the official one from the city. And whenever I put it out, they go, oh my gosh, thanks for letting us know what was going on. So we find that there's so many different audiences, and they're all getting their information from different ways. And I always ask them to sign up for our newsletter, always. But, anyway, those are just some of the struggles I know that you have, is connecting with the people. And I know that you guys this year did away with the Facebook groups for the NABs. And I'm kind of interested to see how that's going. I know there was some pushback from the NABs and actually residents. They were like, well, I was looking there to get the information. Now we have the one. So I just think we need to keep thinking about that, about how all the different ways to get the information out.
The idea with the abolishment of the Facebook groups was that we could push people more to just the City of Reno
Right.
page rather than be so fragmented in our communications.
Well,
So
it's a lot to support. I know.
we would just ask that the community always contact us through our City of Reno Facebook page or City of Reno Twitter. Although we have a lot of other avenues, such as, the fire pages, the
Yeah.
police pages, et cetera.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's it for right this sec. Thank you.
thank you.
Any other council members? Councilman Breckus?
Yeah, I'll just say, wait, sorry. Okay, there I go. Good presentation and way to pinch hit. So, thank you. My comment really isn't for you. It's more because we haven't had a strategic workshop, even though we've had a new manager on for about 11 months, and I'm not indicting her in any way, just, is looking forward in this area. There's two things that are important to me is one, doing a better job in engagement. I think that we need a specialist somewhere in the city that can help the departments know what technique is best. Sometimes it isn't a survey monkey, sometimes it's an open house, sometimes it's focus groups. I'd like to see a specialist, and there is precedent in the city organization for having someone who is that person and builds that team within the department. So that's one. Second is, I thought that I think we were on the path to evaluate how the NABs were working at one point, because they started up in 16, or was it 14? No, it was 14. It was 14. We were on a path to fine-tune them. I always had a vision for how they would work when we got rid of them the first time, and we're going to replace them with something that was more neighborhood-based. And I think since that point in time, at least in Ward 1, where we have very mature neighborhoods, is I do think that there's a way to think about the NABs to make them more neighborhood-specific, and I'm looking for a discussion on that retooling in this upcoming year. And so, that's just important and a priority to me that hasn't, been on the, we haven't gotten to that yet. And I think it was impacted in the unsettlement of, replacing our city manager. It got mixed up in that. But that's something I'm looking for, because I do think that it's time to take a pause, see how they're evaluating, and if we can work with the neighborhoods in a more, in a different way or an enhanced way. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other?
I guess
Councilman Dora?
just have a response to that. I think you hit it, Councilman Breckus, that the neighborhoods are different. And I will just put this pitch that the NAB for me has been invaluable, being such a high growth area with all these developments coming through. I have had packed out NAB meetings with public, up to, let's say, 70 people crammed into our room. And without that ability to kind of screen the projects and have the NAB members give their comment into the Planning Commission, I don't know where I would really be, to be honest with you. So as long as we retain that key element, I am sure the growth pattern, Ward 4's already had high growth as well, and they're going to have more, it sounds like. But for those growth areas, Verdi, I don't know, I find it invaluable, and maybe there's an additive thing, that will work, as she said, for the more mature areas. But I don't want to lose the good part of what we have going right now. So I'll just put a pitch in for that.
Okay. Madam Manager, do we have what's next up on the agenda?
The next step, I believe, would be the Community Development Department.
Okay, let's do that.
What about public comment?
We're on the
We're
same
on the
agenda
same
item.
We're on the same agenda item, and council may take the option to take public comment at the end of this agenda item prior to any motion being made.
And we've got two agenda items.
So actually, our next up is Civil Service Commission.
I apologize. I flipped too many. Civil Service.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor and City Council Member, City Manager. I'm Angie Urita with the Acting Chief Examiner for the Civil Service Commission. And today, want to just brief you on what our core services are, and present you with what we're working on for the future. So the Civil Service Commission was mandated by Reno Charter, and it is set up as an autonomous body that oversees the merit system of competition for employment of regular classified positions in the city. So our civil service staff is 3, a chief examiner, which has been vacant since January, an analyst, which myself, a senior analyst, and we have a civil service technician. And so we take care of 93% of the positions within the city. We recruit for those. We put together eligibility lists for all the departments so that they can choose the wonderful workforce that we have here at the City of Reno. Most of that is accomplished through, of course, announcements, job announcements, recruiting, testing and selection, of course, is a big part of the merit selection process. When we talk about some of our core services, again, we're recruiting for each of the positions. We're developing in coordination with our diversity plan, something more broad in our outreach to be able to, again, support the diversity plan in our recruiting. Job posting, we perform job analysis, which is actually what is the base of any job selection device, and of course of any position, and test administration, design, and establishing those eligibility lists. That kind of sounds like blah, 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 but basically we're your recruiters. We're the people that try to get you the employees that you select. We also are responsible for trying to provide an equitable and fair process for employment, retention, promotion, demotion. We do have a grievance procedure as well as the contracts do. So we do oversee appeal hearings and things like that, as well as the monthly civil service commission meetings. The primary goals, really, we're entering a very exciting time. We have this opportunity to take, a foundation that was built for us, and we get to move forward and benchmark new practices and update the kinds of testing devices that we're using, update the kinds of rules that we use so that we can provide more flexibility into recruiting and selection, but at the same time maintain the integrity of the civil service system with the merit system of competition. We are very interested in always maintaining, following, or finding the best possible people for the positions. But again, we're looking forward to striving for something a little bit more updated using technology and being able to decrease our requisition to hire rate, because that's always what we want to do, is get faster, hopefully. So we'll be deepening our use of our technology and, again, benchmarking practices so that we will be able to continue to get the right kind of candidates. I think we've had some successes this year. I know for City Clerk's office, we ran an office assistant 2 list where we used a different type of outreach and different way of bringing those candidates to us, and was able to design a test that was assistive to what her needs were in the city clerk's office, as well as provide an office assistant list that would be useful to the rest of the departments within the city. We increased or moved up the fire department recruiting to be able to, for business necessity, as they needed to get their academies going. So we were able to do that and provide a new process that was faster and actually reduce costs in the process. So those are the kinds of things we want to continue to do, and we're looking forward to that. The thing that I'm looking forward to coming up is getting the dispatchers fully staffed. That is the goal for this year. I think we're getting close to that. We've just done some promotionals in the department, so that will obviously create some more positions, but we've been trying to recruit quarterly, or we started doing that, and providing lists very often so that the department could continue a role of hiring people. So again, this is what we are excited to do, and I'll be initiating a review group of the civil service rules, so the departments will have a place to come and suggest the kinds of things that they'd like to see updated within the rules, and we'll be looking at that going forward. And we have a lot of education that we need to do within the organization itself about the processes, how to make that faster for them, and just in general, what we do, what we can do for you type of a thing. So those are some of the things that we're moving towards. We might be also moving towards biannual testing for police, recruit, and fire. Again, these are exciting ideas, but there are actually 2 of us on the floor right now with some temporary help. And so once we hit our 3, we'll see what direction we go there. But this is where we're going for the moment. So if you have any questions.
Any questions from council? Councilman McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Bobzien. One of the challenges we've had in civil services, of course, is with the chief examiner retiring, and you fill in that position in the interim. I know that the commission has put together a plan to draft or to recruit for a new civil service examiner. Do you know where they're at in that process?
Yes, I believe they have hired a consultant. They're working on the job description, and I believe at the next meeting they will be speaking with the consultant to discuss more of the exam plan. So I believe that's where they're at.
So they're not on a track to have a person selected prior to the end of this budget year?
I don't have the dates because I haven't been included in that, so I'm not sure. I don't think they have the funding to do that this year.
Yeah. Well, if they haven't selected somebody to do the recruitment yet, they're not going to get it done before the end of the budget year.
And he's already in the job description phase, which just leads him now to the recruitment and the testing process.
So one of the discussions that the commission had early on is seeing if they could get some a budget augmentation for civil service to cover that examiner if they got him hired before the end of the budget year, but it doesn't look like they're going to get there. So that's the only vacancy you have in that department, though, is just
correct.
So, and then currently you're using help from HR, and then you've got a temp working in there to help you with the.
Yes, we do have an office assistant, temporary, working full time. And we do have 4 hours a day from someone from HR. It's kind of intermittent sometimes, but it's been great help.
Okay. That was one of my concerns, that we were going to live out the budget year within their budget, because they're doing a payout over the retirement there, and if we were to appoint that we were going to need a new examiner, or the examiner was brought on before the end of the budget year, that we might need to look at augmenting that budget to help them out there, because that's a very short-staffed department in its entirety, and when demands are high, we get pretty loud when they're not filling vacant positions. So, thank you.
Additional questions, Councilwoman Breckus?
Yeah, good job on your presentation. And I mean, I recognize we're in a period of transition with you all. And I think, I've trust in the commission. I've spoken to a couple of the commissioners about this period of time, and they're optimistic. They look forward to the new possibilities. So I do think it would be good if we could find a way to bring someone on sooner, but I don't see how we could unless a department that is feeling like maybe this is going to cause some grief for them had some, money they could journal voucher over to help accelerate it. But, maybe that's a thought our manager would think about if it came up. We're not doing a whole lot of hiring, it seems like. But do you see any impacts?
If I may.
I think we did do some
We did
adjustments
do
from
a
finance.
budget
so-
augmentation into that
Oh,
department.
that's right, the last one, yeah. Where'd that augment from?
We can find out for you. We'll
Okay,
we'll
that's
get back to
okay.
you on
Is it?
that.
I mean, I remember seeing it on the
Yes.
sheet. Is it going to accelerate the hiring of the chief examiner?
They have the ability to hire the chief examiner this fiscal year if they get that far in the process. That's
Yeah.
my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. It's such an exceptional position that you don't see that the recruitment has to be, it's hard finding some of these unique city positions at this point in time. But okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and then I have one, just for myself, and I appreciate laying out the benchmark of reduced requisition to hire time. Do we have current information on where we are today, where we've been in recent history, what the hoped-for goal is?
I do have some historical, I'd love to put together those stats for you that are current,
Okay.
though.
Yeah, I
That'd
think it'd be
okay.
good as a follow-up if you
Okay.
could just get that to us so we can have that to track. Because, and I recognize, as in all public budgeting, the benchmarks are subject to other factors that don't make it as easy as this is the holy grail for tracking, effectiveness of a program or a department. And yet it is a major item for all of us as we're watching how your area does its work. So I think if we have that, it's just helpful for the council to kind of be able to track historically how we're doing. So
Be happy to put that together.
great, thank you, appreciate that. Madam Manager, what's our next presentation if we have no additional questions?
Next presentation is from Community Development.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you, council members, for entertaining us today. And I say that somewhat facetiously, but entertaining also means giving of your time. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Several weeks ago, one of my esteemed colleagues, in fact, he's wearing a red vest and he's over in the bullpen there, suggested that the Public Works Department was the most forward-facing, most impactful department in the city. And I couldn't take that. I couldn't take that sitting down. And so I'm here today to make the argument that the members of the Community Development Department impact the lives of our citizens on a daily basis more than any other department. And to wit, before a project was a sparkle in the developer's eye, planning was there. Before the family moved into its new house, building and safety was there. Before the homeless person sought shelter from the elements, housing and neighborhood development was there. Before the blighted property was cleaned up, code enforcement was there. Before the new road was paved, engineering was there. And before the police and fire personnel saved the citizen, business license was there, collecting the fees and taxes to pay their salaries. So we are the broadest, farthest reaching department in the city. We influence every aspect of service and operations. When customers visit City Hall, we are the faces that they see as they walk in from the parking structure, and we are the faces that they see when they leave. Virtually every dollar that's invested or generated in this community somehow has a connection through the Community Development Department. So as we look through the slides here, and I'm hoping that I get this right, and I have a lot of slides and we're going to skim through them because I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I sort of facetiously created what I call the state of the Community Development Department, sort of like the state of the city and the state of the state. These are the metrics, the facts, the environment that we currently operate in. And you can see, and we know these things unfortunately all too well, that rents are going up extremely quickly in our community. We have a housing shortage. We have extreme low unemployment rates, which make it difficult to fill positions. And unfortunately, we're in a situation now where average wages have actually declined while cost of living has gone up 7% in the last year here in our region. You can see how many permits we are issuing in terms of multifamily and single-family units, and yet we're still not keeping up with the demand. Our engineering department will process 1,500 single-family lots by the end of this year. Code enforcement has seen an increase of 47% over the last 5 years in cases handled per officer. Our emergency shelters served over 2,300 unique individuals in this past year. We're not going to go read through all these, but these are just really quick things that you can read on your own time in your copy of the slides on what we do. Building and safety, obviously, we're responsible for making sure that the codes are met. Business licensing division, we make sure that businesses operate properly and that we collect the revenues, the general fund revenues that support the other services that the citizens receive. Code enforcement division, we're the folks that make sure that everything is done properly. And one thing that maybe the council's not so aware of, code enforcement are the folks who enforce special use permit conditions. So every time we approve a special use permit and we add a condition, there's a code enforcement officer who has to go out and make sure those are being complied with. Our engineering division reviews all of the plans that come in for new construction in terms of underground utilities and infrastructure. Our housing and neighborhood development, we operate the shelter. We operate our motels to homes program. We operate all of the programs that are funded through HUD and the federal government that relate to that. The planning division, anything that comes in through this city, whether it's a building permit or a rezone or anything to the effect of it's going to be built in this city, comes through the planning division. So our goals for the upcoming year, in terms of administration, customer service. That's what we want to do this year. We want to stress customer service. We worked on it last year, but we want to make sure that when people come in, they feel like that they've been attended properly. Building and safety. We're updating our codes. We have a team, members who are on the code update program, and so we're going to make sure that it's done in a way that's appropriate to the citizens of Reno and to our region. Again, building and safety goals. One of the big things that we're doing with our move to the 6th floor is we want to go to electronic plan submittal. That will save everybody time and money, simply just in the cost of running plans back and forth, but then also the cost of printing and so forth, and it will be a better service for our customers. Building and safety facts really quickly. Here's some numbers, some things. These are the metrics. Tells you how busy we are and what we're doing. Business license goals. We want to update and improve our current program, our Acela program, which we know is struggling, which is not meeting the needs of our customers. Mr. McKenzie, you laugh, but it's very obvious, and we want to improve that. And we also want to tie in better to the state's Silver Flume program. Business license facts. I can tell you where we are and what we're doing in the metrics. Code enforcement goals. Again, you saw where our officers are, how busy they are. The majority of those are customer-driven call-ins, but about 10% are also as a result of our own internal generation. And again, those are things like special use permit conditions and so forth that we go out and process. Our engineering goals, we want to improve our inspections. We want to, we know we were very short-handed this year. We now have 2 field inspectors who can go out and we're working on compliance. And you'll know with this storm coming up, we actually have officers proactively in the field going out, inspectors who are working with the contractors to make sure their properties are buttoned up before the rain comes this weekend. Here's some engineering facts. Again, very, very busy. We had a period of time when we had a backlog. Now that we have 2 associate engineers on board, we're catching up, and we're hoping to get back to within the standard for review times. Our housing and neighborhood development, again, they monitor the shelter. They do all of our motels to homes program and our other federal-related rent deposit assistance programs. Some quick facts. Again, 2,300 people served last year. We've doubled our overflow number of beds, and yet we're still short. And then our deposit assistance program will help over 500 households this year. a couple more facts, rapid rehousing, our blight program, others that we are involved in. Of course, Reno Works is one of the things that we're very proud of. I wish Councilwoman Jordan was here. We could toot her horn, but it's a very successful program. Planning goals, work on historic preservation. We've completed the master plan. We want to move on to Title 18, improve our efficiencies. Here's some quick facts on what the Planning Department did over the last few years in terms of caseload. We were able to maintain our caseload and also process the Stonegate Master Plan and the Reimagine Reno Master Plan. So really quickly, I wanted to just recognize the people in the department that make it happen for me. So Janelle Thomas, our senior engineer, Sienna Reed, representing Claudia Hansen in planning. Right, I lose Alex. There's Alex in our code enforcement, Michael Chomp, business license, Elaine, housing and neighborhood development, and David Hancock, our administration, who handles all of the behind-the-scene things that I'm not able to do for me. And did I miss anybody? Dan, where's Dan?
I miss Sam.
Thanks, Dan. Dan's upstairs. But anyway, I just wanted to appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate the council's support.
Okay, do you have questions from council? Councilwoman Breckus.
What is the Neighborhood Works program costing a year?
You know, I couldn't give you those exact numbers, but they're all by donation, so it doesn't cost the city anything. They're all privately
Yeah,
funded.
no, I was looking at the finance group. I was just wondering if it had
Sorry.
general fund money in it. Okay, none. Okay,
No.
thanks.
Councilman Dorr.
Yeah, thank you. I know firsthand how hard everyone in your group works. I mean, this budget this growth pressure has been just unrelenting. And I've seen it at the NABs, and you guys see all of it come together for the whole city. So I think it's remarkable what you're turning out. Just a few quick questions, and I'm sorry I had to step out for a moment, and you may have covered this, but I recently someone recently called me and said they were trying to build a house in Somerset. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure, so Dan Hawley is part of, building.
Yes.
So they said that it was taking now 4 months to get a building permit, like for a house. And I don't know if that's true or what you see as timeframes, what you're facing.
I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
we are turning every set of new plans that comes in around in 10 working days with a 3-day on red lines.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering if they're talking about the subdivision construction approval and not necessarily the home itself, because we're not seeing that in terms
This was
of
just the
permit
home.
review.
So what I want to do is get back with them. I just
Please.
feel like it's important to get your numbers out there.
Yes.
And I don't know, I didn't see a lot of numbers in here. I saw some that changes, the growth and the number of building permits.
Right.
But one thing, when I've worked, what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
I know that in order for people to understand what you do and how hard it is, that it's always good to have like numbers of permits per employee, or
Yes.
how long it takes to do a permit, or how long it takes to solve a regulatory case open and shut, so that there's some sense back to us, of what the demands are and how things are going, and some metrics. So it's just an idea, to.
Well, Councilman Dorr, you're stealing my thunder. I was going to, similar to what I suggested to civil service, I think it's fantastic that we do have this tracking that is coming from the different departments, but I also want to then push it to the next step to say, let's start laying this out so we can start tracking the historical.
Yeah.
Recognizing, I know there's some reluctance at times to put those numbers out because now and then you're going to have those dips, but I think we need to see that. So I'm looking at the manager to kind of track that. That's going to be my
Exactly.
consistent request throughout all of these. Thank you for putting together the benchmarks, but let's start doing the historical, because now is the time when we got to evaluate what we're seeing right now versus where we were during the downturn.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much. And it tells a story that we need to understand better.
Right. If I may.
Yeah.
Approximately 4 months ago, City Manager Newby enrolled 4 of us in Lean Six Sigma training, which Claudia
Good.
and I and John Flansburgh and Callie Wilsey went through. And that was the beginning of a process where we are starting to do exactly what you said. So we are about 4 months into our metric study, where we're actually going through and we're setting up a system so that we can track how long a set of plans sits with each planner, with each individual, how long it goes back to the developer, and so forth, using our current Acela program.
Okay.
So we're about 4 months down the road, and so by this time next year, I hope to come back with the exact report that you're requesting.
Right, and it can help too with the assessment of the fees. You know, what it should cost to get a permit, once you have an understanding of the time involved and actual recovery of costs.
Yes.
Okay, so then the other question I had for you, and I assume some of my colleagues would support me in this. One of the things, and I'll talk to the manager, and I think I've already brought up to her actually back in February. One of the things I'm hoping, and I don't know if it would be housed in your department or not, but I would like to take your staff out of the conflict position that they're in when reviewing historical properties. And I would like a historical expert, even on contract, even if we can't afford a full-time one. I would love to see that advice available to you to help you do your evaluation. And again, I'm suggesting that we get started with a contract. Maybe it's a $50,000 contract, you know, on standby for when you need this kind of help, you know, of a local type person. And so I think it would make it so that your staff aren't having to be both the historical advisor and the permit reviewer.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It really puts them, I think, in a little bit of a difficult position. So this is something I would advocate. I know we're short on money, and I know we're short on staff, and we can't add people, and that's why I'm suggesting, you know, this contract approach to just get started. And we have some great people in town, you know, that provide those kind of services. So
Fantastic. Thank you.
okay, so that'd be thank you.
And just actually to dovetail on that one, because I think I have a similar version of that. I have been vocal and continue to be vocal that I think we need to look at the Building Enterprise Fund for some of these purposes. Similar to that, I know we're down some staff right now in this area, but I have had a conversation with someone, with an entity that could be a possible outside view to do essentially a basic inventory of existing structures in the city to kind of get a handle on things. The theory being some of the controversy that we're seeing right now.
Exactly.
Look, once the property is purchased, once the fence is up, however, if there's an opportunity for the department to look at things from a more proactive perspective, from a how can we help the development community understand what it is that's out there and what the opportunities are, that's something that I'd like to see a conversation happen around. So again, I've got that request into staff right now to take the next step on that exact project.
Perfect.
But just recognizing that we've got some folks out right now that
And a
that'll
great
take a little
help
bit.
in that is this program that is Reno Historical. I think you might be familiar with it. It's an app, free app to download. It shows all the inventoried houses already that they have inventoried, but this is outside group. And maybe this could become a baseline for the city, you know, to build on. And then there was one more piece, and in your department again, I'm looking for, you know, we have the Washoe County lands bill coming forward, and I've been working on that with you.
Yes.
And we've been talking about Virginia Range, open space, Peavine. We've also been talking about the community trust, land trust for affordable housing.
Yes.
And so those are projects I think that have been really special that the city started. And I don't know what else we need to do in terms of, you know, you seem to have some great GIS data, but it seems like we could even take it to the next level. So that's something I think might be a special project for this year for your department, that you might need a little funding to get through that process till the federal bill is done. And, you know, I know you're handling it yourself. I know it could be multiple years, but anyway, getting a good baseline start. And so I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Since that falls in your bailiwick, I think.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, do we have additional?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Vargas.
Yeah, you know, I am one of the members to the BFAC, and I think that a lot of the metrics that are inquired about are produced for the BFAC meetings each month. So if council members aren't on I don't typically go to those meetings, but I'm reading all the minutes and all the materials. And so if you don't get those materials, they're the metrics of what the development, pace and permits are, and they're just, you know, they're the standard for the information of what's coming through the second floor. But I would support a $50,000 contract or something from the enterprise to help implement the master plan as related to historic preservation.
Right.
And I would write it that broad. I am a little concerned that we're 4 months into the adoption of the master plan, and we really haven't had a pointed update on what are we doing this year to update the master plan. I think we have something that's kind of jumping to something on our agenda next week. And my question is, well, why are we jumping to that? Why aren't we doing these other 4 things? So, but since it's coming up here as a priority, I think that in that historic preservation, that is, obviously a priority to us. So I would support the budget showing us how to get somewhere in that policy area this next year, knowing we have an eligible funding source that we could utilize, but make it very broad to think about what does the master plan say about this and how this services will help implement that on a faster track. Thanks.
Councilman McKenzie? Got anything? Okay. So I want to go back to the slide that you had, Eric, on Acela and the portal issues.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, so we have essentially 2 ongoing long-term integration projects, one being OneNevada.us, the other one being how are we going to tie in with Silver Flume.
Right.
I want to flag this possibly for a future council meeting. This one continues to concern me from the standpoint of it's very easy to spend a lot of effort and spend a lot of money and not get any further down the road. I am a longtime supporter of, for instance, the state's effort with Silver Flume, and I do believe that this is a worthwhile engagement. But it just, my own history with IT projects, this one just has written all over it. If we're not careful, we're going to go way off the road on this one. And it's not so much our own staff, our own efforts, our own resources expended, but I do think we need to have sort of an honest presentation, a frank presentation to council as to what the state of the partnerships are, and just to kind of guide this so we have a full check-in as this continues to be a cost center for us cycle after cycle. I have seen improvements. I do hear good anecdotes about things are better with this, but I think with that, all of us hear the anecdotes about the shortcomings, and maybe have also experienced it when we've tried to use it for whatever we need to use it for. So just want to flag that for later, that would be a good sort of check-in item for council as we're monitoring this.
Would you? Oh,
Councilman McKenzie.
Since you brought up the half-dead horse in the room, there comes a time when you quit feeding it grain, trying to get it better, and just take it to the vet and have them put it to sleep. And this Acela seems like it's getting to that point with me. This is a program that has all good intentions, and if it was working, it would be a major benefit to the community. But it hasn't come close to meeting expectations, and we're spending more and more money to do patches and fixes on this thing, and the idea we're going to try to integrate it with another program that isn't perfect. While there's a good thought to that, sometimes you've got to back off and cut your losses, and I think that if Acela can't come to the table and fix some of the problems they've got in a very short term, we need to take it to the vet and get rid of it. Because this is, I see major chunks of the budget that we're talking about putting into more work on this thing, and it hasn't provided the benefits that it's supposed to have provided. And I can see a lot of things that we need in this community besides throwing more money after good to a computer programmer that knows he's got a bottomless pit of money he can keep going to because he thinks you're in too far to pull out of it. And I think the message needs to be given to them. If you can't fix it, then we're going to find some other way to do it. And if the city of Sparks and Washoe County want to keep on dumping money into this worthless program, that's their choice. But I think this city needs to make a decision to quit wasting money on it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, Mr. Thomas has been our representative with Acela, and I think he can update you a little bit on our status with that right now.
For the record, Bill Thomas, Assistant City Manager. I would be the last person to say that this hasn't been a long, expensive, difficult process. But probably what's most important, and I'm not suggesting you go this way, but this was a conscious decision by a previous council to integrate our systems with our two sister agencies, that being Washoe County and Sparks. And the thing that we learned pretty deep into this is that created some particular difficult hurdles for us, which is when you go in with partners, whatever the weakest link is what drives how long it takes and how much it costs to fix. I forgot to add, we also have the health department. So I'm not blaming or saying anything other than the fact that we consciously, as the city of Reno, chose to go into a regional process that has become very much more complex than we originally thought. However, we're on the backside of it now. I would be the last person to say it's been perfected, but I think the major issues we've seen in the past are somewhat behind us. If the council chose as a policy that you were less concerned moving forward about creating a regional process, that would be a direction we would need. We are continuing to work on the former direction, which is work together for a regional solution. That's probably really the most important policy direction that we would look for from you. I'm not saying we're at a point where I'm encouraging we back off, but that was clearly a driver in the way the staff handled it, was your desire, or the council's desire, to make this a regional process.
Okay, I'd like to try to capture this conversation, and I'll allow Councilman Breckus a question. But what I hear there sounds like the rough draft of what could be a very productive agenda item at a future council meeting is that actual critical path map of where we've been, what we've gotten through, an overview of those actual issues. I mean, we're going to get in under the hood, I think, a little bit with this, but I think it would be important. And so that would give us more comfort, more background in where things are, so we can sort of join with you in that assessment as to, do we need to change a direction? Do we feel like we're out of the woods? Where are we with it? I think just, not anytime, next week or so, but sometime in the very near future, I think it'd be good to be able to spend a lot more time on this and get the full picture of what your analysis is seeing. So, Councilman Breckus.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I concur. I think that I was concerned. You said, well, do we want to get rid of this? I was like, oh boy, not the baby with the bathwater, because this is the standard that is used. I was always dubious of this effort to bring in the others when we have so much more business license activity. But I would ask that perhaps when this agenda item comes back, we also talk about really the feasibility of the online plan submittals, because I noticed in the slideshow also that it's kind of something that someone at some point thought this is the way it has to be done and we need to do it. And I could, and I've always questioned it also, because it's just so much so much volume coming across the internet of these plans. I mean, these plans can be 4 inches, or they can be 4 inches thick, and to think that we're really going to be doing electronic submittals on those, I just don't see it. So maybe when this comes back, we could also have an honest discussion on that, because I hate for you to get past Acela and then, the next thing we're doing is we're getting out everything going paperless when, maybe there's 2 jurisdictions in the country that do that. I don't know, but I don't think it's as common as people would like to think that it is, and say that it's the way of the, things have to go. The engineering firms, I think also recognize it too on their end. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Follow-up question?
Councilman
Not on this topic.
Okay.
For you, Eric, just 2 more things. Something I would have liked to see in the presentation is, I know that one of the big time consumers in your department has to do with developing regulations. And I would have liked to see, and maybe in the future we could see, just a one-pager on what are your priorities for this year. I know we have Title 18, but that's very broad. And I'm wondering, what parts of Title 18? Is it the ADUs? Is it what? And so I think that without that, you're missing a huge piece of your workload that takes lots of people's time and the lawyer's time. And I want to make sure we all concur that those are the next ones, and that there's still some flexibility to deal with, crises kind of, oh my gosh, we didn't realize this was undealt with. The second thing is, I didn't hear, were you planning, I don't know if you're adding any staff, or what's the answer to that?
We have several requests in.
Okay.
One of them in particular is for a code enforcement position.
Okay.
We have a couple where we're trying to convert some part-time positions into full-time positions, where we have, 2 people working 17 hours a week. And so you'll see those also within the PCRs. So our PRCs. Oh my gosh, now I've got it backwards. PCR, sorry. So the world I come from, PCR is Park City Resort in Salt Lake. And so I come here and you have PCR, and then we have Then we also have our Parks and Rec Commission.
Right.
So I have enough PCR combinations out there that, sorry. But, so we have a couple requests. Those are the ones that we're really looking for this year, is code enforcement. We also, and then to convert one of our business license positions into the 2 part-timers into a full-time.
Okay. So a question I had, how many engineering staff do we have?
Currently, we have 2 associate engineers that work with Janelle. And then under them, we have 2 additional field inspectors, and we have 2 people who review the plans, the infrastructure plans that go out in the field.
So 2 associate engineers, 2 field inspectors, and what?
And 2 engineering tech. Those are the
2
folks that
engineering
review the plans.
Okay.
So grand total of 7 right now.
Okay. It seemed one of your goals here was to speed up.
Yes.
And usually the only way people speed up, they got 2 options. They could work smarter, faster, and then they can have more of them.
Right.
So I didn't know if that was one of the ones too, because I think this is an area we could use some beefing up, and I'll just be real specific. What I keep running into in some legacy projects, that are out there, those are the ones that come to me that are problems. It's often that the engineer reviewed the project at their desk, and they didn't have the chance or opportunity or time to go out and see the layout of that development or understand the layout. And I'll give you an example. Just right now, last week I was out at Curdy Ranch. They had requested I come out and look at their streets.
Yes.
And they're trying to figure out how their streets are integrating with the new Caramella streets. And there's a portion of just Western Skies that seems like it's going to be unimproved. And I have a feeling, and maybe our staff went out there, but I have a feeling if our staff looked out there, not just at the Caramella, but how does it tie into everything else, maybe they would have made some different kind of requests. Maybe I would have been a little more informed to ask for a different type of thing, or better integration, or widen a street where all these developments come together, that kind of stuff. And so that's where I'm struggling, is in the analyzing the traffic patterns, making sure that the network that's being proposed works well, understanding the hydrology and the drainage, making sure that's integrated regionally, and just maybe giving them time to think through some of those issues, so we have some good answers. So.
Fantastic.
This may benefit somebody else in another ward later down the line. These developments are getting done, but I have a feeling there's going to be some rework needed. Just after myself driving out there just last week with the residents and their homeowners association. Okay, so those are some things that are on my mind right now. Thank you.
If I may also, just really quickly, we also have one more PCR request in within the Housing and Neighborhood Division. We have a position that left, and we're going to convert that to be half-time with code enforcement and half-time with housing. And so that's the other one that will be coming before you for your consideration.
Okay. Well, maybe those engineers need a little help too. I don't know.
We'll find one that can do everything, a super person.
Okay, no additional content to be covered here.
Okay.
Oh, someone on the phone?
Thank you.
Mayor Sheevy, I believe we have you on the phone in council chambers.
Yes, thanks, Madam Clerk.
All right, very good.
Next department up, we have the Department of Information Technology.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor on the phone, council members, City Manager Newby. Rishma Kimji, Assistant Director of IT for the record. Thank you so much for your time today as I briefly expand on the information technology at the city and the core services we provide. Our primary objective is to provide centralized services to all city departments and at the same time ensure each department has the IT support they require to deliver their services to our citizens. So our core services include the support and maintenance of centralized IT applications and services, which can range from a variety of system and applications. This includes email, desktop support, VoIP phones, and the list goes on. However, departments also require specialized tools, applications, and systems in order to do their jobs, and so IT provides IT project management. With our department business partners, we provide support and application discovery, figuring out what they need based on their current workflows. We work to acquire the tools or application that best suits their needs and work with them to implement the right solution. And once the new system is live, we work on maintenance and reviewing business workflows periodically to find areas of improvement and data assurance. We are stewards of our network and server infrastructure, and so we maintain, upgrade, or update our network equipment to safeguard the overall infrastructure. Our networks are built and managed to safeguard information that travels along the information superhighway. Our servers and data centers are built to ensure they are scalable, cost-efficient, and secure from external unwanted forces. We leverage as much of the current technologies available to enhance business processes while remaining fiscally responsible. Basically, we want you to have the ways and means to interconnect with the world as it continues to transition from the analog to the digital. As we continue to expand our responsibilities in IT, it is important to note that as we strive to improve our services and infrastructure, we are simply trying to keep up with the current demand from our various city departments as they try to do more with less. IT is a resource that departments can rely on to automate or streamline processes while delivering services to our citizens. From this list, you can see a few of the partnerships IT has built with our departments and the various IT needs and services we support. We are working with police on body-worn cameras, fire on data quality and field reporting and AVL. We ensure that dispatch has a functional, responsive, and efficient computer-aided dispatching and mapping system. And we ensure that all of public safety has a reliable and working radio communication system. We work with finance to ensure they have a budget and finance system that is free from interruption and error. We continue to work with HR on building robust platforms for onboarding and payroll. We work with the city clerk to implement a new system for digital records retention and public request. We continue to work with ComDev to ensure they have an integrated building permits and inspection system that fulfill their workflows. We have worked with Public Works on the parking ticket system, upgrading their SCADA, investigating and implementing the right mobile tools for their field personnel, updating the building maintenance system, and as we move forward, we hope to partner with them as they may upgrade their asset management system. Big picture projects include big data aggregation and building analysis platforms that can be accessed by you and your constituents. We're working on this now and hope to roll out this later this year. This platform is a foundation for policy-driven dashboards and later open data portals. And last but not least, IT has taken a major role in various regional partnerships, such as smart city initiatives, all the way to regional public safety systems and applications. As the departments increase their service availability, technology must also keep pace in order to support these initiatives. Often we are thought of as the sunk cost with repeated long-term cost. The results of our labor are not immediately apparent. Instead, IT is a necessary variable in providing essential services to our communities. Our value is determined by the efficiencies we provision and the short and long-term cost savings provided through increased automation. I truly believe in IT invisibility. We are the constant in all things public safety. Police and fire should never have to worry if their laptops, applications, apparatus, radios are going to turn on and work correctly. Their focus is on protecting and saving lives, ours and theirs. For all the departments and all the work they do to maintain and safeguard our city, IT should just work without concern and without interruption. That leads way to our responsibilities. We are responsible for the effective operations of services regardless of means or method, and we do not take that lightly. Most importantly, as our city redefines itself, IT becomes a change agent, facilitating automation and streamlining services and workflows. And that's why we hope you understand that as the city services and commitments to our citizens grow, so does the need for centralized and partnered IT services. Our budget and requests highlight these needs, and I understand the budgetary impacts. But IT needs to be invested in as well and thought of as a partner to the various initiatives our enterprising city moves forward with. And I will take any questions at this time.
Okay, do we have any questions for IT? Councilwoman Breckus.
Yeah, great, thorough overview of an area, I don't really get too well, but I like how you broke it into the departments and the support. On the SCADA, I hear so much about SCADA over at Tumwa, and so we have SCADA for ticketing, for the...
No, we have SCADA for our sewer systems.
Oh, for the sewer system. That makes sense. Okay. Oh, I see. It was Public Works. Okay. So SCADA is a program, an engineering program. Are we pretty up to date on that and
Yes,
in
we
good
just
shape on that
upgraded
one?
Their infrastructure, so we upgraded their network and their server infrastructure, and along with that, the application.
Okay. So we feel comfortable in that area.
I
Okay.
believe so, yeah.
Great. Well, and do we use it over at the treatment plants also?
Yes, we do.
Okay, okay. Well, great, and thank you for
Not a
your
problem.
presentation, and good.
Okay, any additional questions?
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I
Oh, Madam Mayor.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Thanks. Rishma, I think you did a great job. I know you're doing so much more, with less. I would kind of like to hear from the council, how important IT is. I think it's something, Councilwoman Breckus kind of said it's not a department that we all understand very well. However, as times change, this data becomes incredibly sensitive and vulnerable, and certainly with body cameras and things of that nature. The other thing is that it seems like I get a lot of notices in my inbox about the system being down. So I'm just sort of curious as to how much money that you would like to allocate to that infrastructure. And then the other piece of that is, now with the body cameras, that, I worry about that data and how we keep it, and how do we keep it, very secure. And do we house that data at City Hall, or maybe that, because that data is sensitive, maybe, I don't know if that's something that you can really talk about, but, looking at infrastructure, and how important do you think it is to keep those servers and that data secure, and what kind of direction would you like to see, Rishma? You're the expert in this, but I kind of think we need to pay attention about, some of that backup now more than ever.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Shibi. Those are really great questions, and I'd love to address those. So let me first start off with the body-worn camera data. Currently, our contract with Axon allows us to upload our data from the body-worn cameras directly into their repository, so we are not hosting that on site. However, we are working with Axon to ensure that we have one tunnel of data going up to their cloud repository so that we can maintain its security. So we are working with them to make sure that that happens. One of the nice things about being with Axon is that the data is encrypted. And so as it's moving from the cameras up to the cloud repository, it will be encrypted, and it'll be on our network, which is also going to be safeguarded through the various cyber security tools that we have and the partnership with Axon. So I'm relatively confident that our data is going to be safeguarded once it goes from the cameras up to the cloud. So I have no issues with that. Other relationships with municipalities and Axon have also followed the same path, and so we're sure that we're following best practice on that. One of the notices that I know that council and the city received was a couple weeks ago when we lost our networking due to construction in the city. We have just certain pathways where a conduit lies within the city, which allows us to have network and fiber or coax connections. So basically, those tunnels that hold all of our fiber got cut during a construction event, and it took us down. My recommendation is that we start looking at how to have alternative pathing so we can have backups to backups to backups. So if something does go down, we can seamlessly transition our data onto new fiber. However, the city as a whole and the vendors that we have out there, AT&T, Comcast, Zayo, and all them, they all follow the same path. So it's very hard to have alternative pathing developed, but I've been speaking with Public Works so that when we have roads that are being constructed, if we can get funding for the conduit at least we can lay conduit down so that we can then start looking for the fiber and building those alternate pathways and then hosting that through the city, which is what we call dark fiber. Relating it back to body-worn camera, we are constructing our dark fiber pathway between City Hall and police, which is another avenue to ensure that the data is secure and that they have priority on that data stream. So we're looking at ways to be cost-effective and to partner with the other departments when it comes to this. We don't really have projections on costing yet because we need to first figure out how we're going to get the policies and procedures in place and look at the different ways we can put the alternative pathing in the ground and work with the vendors that are out there as well, AT&T and Comcast, and have them maybe put in those alternate pathing so that they can see the value of that alternate pathing, right? They're going to go where the profit is. One of the nice things that I've been able to do with the help of the economic development manager or sustainability manager is to work with UNR, and we're actually doing a digital divide study now. So we're looking at how other cities have measured the digital divide within their city, and those are looking at areas that don't have connectivity right now. And that'll help us, again, when we start looking at alternate pathing and working with our vendors, because we can say there is a market here, so let's put the pathing in, give us the ability to jump into that pathing, or give us the room in your conduit to put fiber in. And you will have a client base in that area as well, because we know that they don't have fair valued internet there. So we're looking at different strategies. And hopefully by next year, we'll have a better plan in place and some pinpointed recommendations that we can give to you and say we do need funding for this, or this is how we've created a public-private partnership to get funding in for these types of activities. So we are looking at how do we work with the public, private, and maybe even some grant funding that's out there.
And so, Rishma, just to follow up with you on that one, so that's part of the Star Communities work, the digital divide.
The digital divide is actually just a research project through UNR. So UNR gives their students the ability to do a semester's worth of work and get credit for it, but based on real-world projects.
Okay, you had just mentioned the sustainability manager, so I didn't know if that was part of our overall Star Communities.
Ms. Barker has been really good at getting us these partnerships. So it's not part of a specific smart city initiative that I'm involved in, but another product.
Well, that's cool.
Program.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, good stuff.
Hey, Rishma, just really quickly, how long is that contract with Axon, and how much is it? Do you know exactly yet, or no?
Contract with, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. With Axon?
With Axon?
Yes, the contract is 5 years. I believe it was presented at council last session, so it's a 5-year contract. I think the total is $1.8 million. That does not include the network equipment that we're putting in. However, we are going to the E911 Advisory Board in this fiscal year to get for those reimbursements that we've put in.
All right. And do I dare ask this next question? How outdated is our infrastructure? I mean, I think what I guess I'm trying to get at is that maybe, the council understands the magnitude of your department and, like you said in your presentation, making it a priority, because I think now more than ever, it's vulnerable, right? With all, the different things that you're doing and taking on, and it's good to hear about the dark fiber. So just kind of curious, I guess I'd just kind of like you to sort of clarify
So
how important it is.
To get into the nitty-gritty of it, we did an audit of our networking equipment just at City Hall last year. That includes all the routers and the switches that directs our network connectivity. A lot of that equipment is old, it's out of warranty. To replace all that in one shot would cost us $2 million. If we wanted to do a citywide initiative where we look at all of our other city facilities, Muni Court, PD, some of the fire stations, some of the community centers, that would cost us almost $4 million to fund in one shot. However, I did put a request into CIP, and I'm going to repeat that request next year because I know we had some funding issues with it this year, to get a recurring amount of dollars so that we can then start planning on long-term basis on equipment replacement. But if we were to do that in one shot, it would cost us almost $2 million just for City Hall. We are doing okay in that we're maintaining what we have. It's it's not at the level that we would wish it to be. There's a lot of technology out there that we would love to bring into the city and leverage. But I have a really smart team, and they really do think outside the box. And with that team approach, we've come up with some ways to safeguard us through firewalls, through appliances, through the Bitdefender that we have on all of our desktops. So we're using multiple layers of cybersecurity, which has helped us protect us a lot from the things that have happened. We heard about Atlanta getting the ransomware, right, a few weeks ago, where they had to pay, I think, like $50,000 to get their data back. We've heard of hospitals in the Mideast that, they needed to pay $150,000 to get their data back. But we've been really good with the fact that my team is so smart that we're able to find these other ways of coming up with solutions. So we're great solution builders. But it would be nice if we could get the funding, and I will always advocate for that funding. But I also understand that we have departments that are more customer facing, and so some of the priority goes to that. But it's important to also understand that our relationship with them is to make them successful at customer facing and providing the services. We have to make sure we have the right IT tools to provide to them. So, we'd like to think of ourselves as partner to those departments to ensure they get those things out. But it is expensive. And as we start looking at a more millennial type of people coming into the city due to our city's restructuring and, and all the great partners that are coming in, we do need to make ourselves a little bit trendier, if that's a way to say it. But we need to make ourselves a little bit more available when it comes to the IT technologies and availabilities that we have at the city. So, and that includes upgrading our infrastructure, getting those varied pathways for networking, providing smarter tools to our constituents. So.
Okay, well, I think, you make some excellent points. It's just, and I don't have to tell you this, but cities are so vulnerable, and I think it's an area of government that has really fallen behind because they don't understand the technology that's in place and so forth. So I appreciate it. As I said, trendier. And, probably to your point, it's thinking outside the box, working with those partners. And we have some, great resources coming into the city, obviously. So hopefully we can leverage those. But I think you did a great job. And I hope council, I would stress that they see the importance of this infrastructure because that data is so important to us. So thanks so much. Good job.
Thank you, Mayor. And if there's any other questions?
Yes, Councilwoman Breckus.
Yeah, I just, I am, understanding that we have so much to do internally to support all the other work that we do, but this, I guess you're calling it pathways and working with the economic development manager, is something that you said maybe by the end of the year you'd be bringing forward to us. But I recall, well, two things. First, that our former finance director had a plan ready to come to council for adoption in terms of setting up the criteria for planning the fiber and where and when and, how that would proceed. And that kind of get lost in the shuffle, I thought. And then second, Councilmember Dewar at the last moment when we were adopting our master plan asked that we have a policy related to, expanding the network. And every now and then I get a constituent from Ward 1 writing to me who works from their home and just does not have the ability to do it to the degree that they need to. And I kind of am wondering when we're going to make that jump. Will it be the end of next year? Where are we at on it? You kind of answered it. I just want to amplify the interest that I hear. And just also say that I think it is economic development. Maybe it's not in your shop. Maybe it's in our other shop over there. Maybe it's in the GoEd office because they seem to, it doesn't seem to have triggered up as economic development to their need, but maybe the state provides some assistance to the cities. I don't know, but I do think that it's a drumbeat that's going to be increasing from probably the neighborhoods more is where I see it. So, and some business districts too, but a lot of it seems more home-based. So,
yeah, so
thank you.
I mean, if we look at it, right, there's a costing to everything.
Yeah.
And so when AT&T, Comcast, Zayo, all these different providers come in, they look at what's the cheapest path available to provide services. We have a hub where they start their services from, so it's the front of the line where they start their services from. They plug in, and that's the network. And so then to build the conduit or the pathways to the different neighborhoods to make sure they can get that connectivity, the expense of that can be very high depending on how far away they have to get from their centralized location. So, they have their beginning point, and then how far can I branch out from that at the cheapest cost? So they're always looking for the cheapest pathway. The digital divide, what a lot of cities are looking at is, let's find those neighborhoods where they don't have that availability and show that there is a customer base there. So there is an economic incentive to provide fiber or even the older copper connections to these areas. And that opens up for a whole new pathway of information, because now people can find cheaper fiber, right? Because now there's competition in the market. They can get the cheaper fiber, but not only that, but they're now able to hook into social services that they can't get off just their cell phones anymore, right?
Sure.
So it opens up the avenue for a whole bunch of other types of development. And so that's kind of where the digital divide research that's going to come back to me, we can start looking at that and saying, how do we actually do that research in Reno? How can I measure digital divide in Reno? And then work with the departments and the private vendors out there and say, look, you do have a pocket of economic incentive here, and let the departments that are smart at doing that approaches do that, but provide them the tools to say there is this ability to do that. Here's the research we've done for the digital divide.
Great. I just think that, best practices and, whether economic opportunity or, incentive of, you want to do the city's business, then the city's business is doing this. There are lots of tools you see in the
There's always ways to leverage your
industry.
partnership, right? There's always ways to leverage a partnership.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just glad we have an IT director who's going to take it on as a lead, because I think it should be, taken from that department. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions? If not, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you very much.
On to our next presentation.
Next up, we have the Finance Department.
Oh, good afternoon. So in the finance department, our core services are, of course, our accounting and budgeting, as we're here talking about budget. That is one of our major projects every year. Within the accounting, of course, we do, all the money in, all the money out goes through our software system. We ensure that we're compliance with state, federal, GASB, which is a government accounting standards board. That's what our accounting department does. They do financial reporting and a bunch of all that. Well, financial reporting is actually done with financial planning. Budgeting, as you've seen this process we're going through, this is our budget process. It starts really right after the beginning of the fiscal year. We start planning for the next budget. In fact, we've already developed a calendar for the next budget, just so that we can get that planning in place. Financial planning does the overall financial reporting, financial updates, and manages our investment portfolio. We also provide organizational support through a procurement specialist and doing the city mail. And we do the sewer billing and to support the operation of the sewer system. So our primary goals, and we're looking at, after we get through the restructuring of the retract bonds, which are what we're working on right now, we are looking at working on the redevelopment agency bonds. There's some issues there that we need to manage through, and looking at how we might be able to restructure that debt so that it cash flows going forward. We do monitor all of our debt service, being that the city has such a large debt portfolio. That's an area where we do provide strict management. We want to make sure that we are always looking for opportunities to better our position in that area. We monitor the economic conditions. We review revenues and expenditures. We provide updated financial and budget to actual comparisons, and meet with our city manager on a regular basis to show where we may have areas of concern, where we may need additional budget at some point, and just discuss those issues and get the direction we need to move forward. And then we also continue to look at enhanced collection efforts throughout the whole organization. If you've billed the money, you've sent an invoice, we need to make sure we actually collect it as well. So we do that is an area where we have a goal to continue to work to improve what our collections are. So with that, that's just kind of an overview of finance. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have if I'm able, and if not, we'll get you an answer.
Perfect. Thank you. Look to my right, Councilwoman Breckus. Do you have any questions?
I just, you came on so mid-budget and getting set up, and we've tried budget so many different ways, and that's such a big part of the year, and the CAFR. And so great. And then the restructuring of that debt is going to be huge deal for us, but hopefully a good outlook. I'm liaison to the FAB, and they want to be engaged and participants, and so look forward to having those discussions at that level. I guess one thing struck me is in the last year, someone who really knows city governments and watches our meetings said, you spend such a little amount of time of this, a council as a whole, on the finances and the financial, and I feel that is a correct analysis. And so I guess what I'm going to be looking forward is maybe some point mid-year or at some point is really more a beefing up, and not necessarily on the staff reports of the finance implications, but letting us know the snapshot and the bigger picture of the decisions that we make on a one-by-one, and cumulative timetables, I guess I'd say. And I know your experience is maybe going to help, think that through. And if I have to show up case study, case examples of where I feel that the overall picture of where that decision plugged into the overall fiscal, not only for that FY, but going forward, was lacking, I'll call it out to you. But I do have hopes. I think the council is very understanding of our fiscal outlook and our fiscal condition, which sometimes can be pretty demoralizing, particularly resources to give any department at any given time the tools that they need. But I think that there's a bigger conversation beyond that the council could be having in some ways that maybe you can help us engage in. So thank you.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Council members, Councilman McKenzie? Councilwoman Dorr?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mayor Sheevy, do you have any questions? I'll take that as a no.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys, so I apologize.
No worries. Do you have any questions, Madam Mayor?
No, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. City Manager.
All right, next up we have the Human Resources Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council Manager Newby. For the record, I am Mandy Bowler. I am the Director of Human Resources for the City of Reno. Our departmental core services are offered to the City of Reno's employees through us being one of the one of the internal service departments that deals with all employees. We have 4 program areas: recruitment and development, employee services, employee and labor relations, and compliance. Recruitment and development is non-civil service recruitments, and our learning and development program, which we are working to build into a more robust training program. Employee services combines employee benefits and payroll. Employee and labor relations is employee relations and administering the collective bargaining agreements for the 10 bargaining units the city has. And our compliance program is FMLA, ADA, and workers' compensation. Our future goals are to build a robust and meaningful learning and development program. This is one of our main goals in the upcoming fiscal year and will be a goal for us for many years to come. Training is one of the places where we fall down in this organization and one of the places we want to build up the most. We think that to offer a meaningful professional development program is something that all employees of the city of Reno want and that they want to be able to take advantage of. We are seeking to analyze, identify, and maximize efficiencies in all of the program areas mentioned before. One of the main things that we're doing is we are doing a major analysis of our workers' compensation program, the efficiencies that we can identify that we can implement to streamline the processes for employees, streamline processes for departments, and hopefully lower the costs of that program, and to facilitate organizational culture change through interdepartmental collaboration. One of the things that the Human Resources Department has faced in the last 5 to 10 years is a decentralization in this organization. We're working very hard to bring some of the services that were farmed out to departments back to human resources and to offer ourselves as a true resource to the organization. That's my whole presentation.
That's brief. Look to my left this time. Councilwoman McKenzie. Questions? Councilwoman Dewar.
I'm good. I know, a question I had, I guess, is you just listed your duties, but you didn't say like payroll and health benefits. Is that part of you or is that part of someone else?
Payroll and group health insurance are part of our employee services program.
Is that part of
It is
HR?
human resources, yes.
So I didn't see that on your, oh, it's listed under employee services. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
And then how many are actually in recruitment and development? How many people are supporting that?
There are 2 people who currently both work half-time.
2 half-timers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have
And
8
that
total in
seems-
the department.
Excuse me?
We have 8 total in the department.
Okay. And then what about, so those are the main, employee services is after the people are hired, benefits, getting paid.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes.
Labor relations, we know that, you used to be in that group.
Yes.
And then the compliance, what do they do exactly?
FMLA, ADA, and workers' compensation.
FMLA, ADA, workers' comp. Okay. Well, I guess I will just put in a pitch. I think that this, again, especially in the era that we're in, trying to update our policies, trying to create a new kind of, I guess, workplace culture, if I will, and the training that you're going to be embarking upon. I think that this recruitment and development program, just from my perspective, Madam Manager, is probably needs, I'm just identifying some points, just like I did with the historic resources. We said the words on the page, but I don't think we had a $50,000 contract, to provide services for history. I think this is an area, maybe we need some kind of a contractual help in doing training. I don't really know. You'll figure it out, but I'm just highlighting that it's important to me that what we've just put down on paper and we're adopting is actually meaningful, and that we can, in fact, I guess the word would be fulfill the dream that's identified in those words. So how we get there, I think it's, having come through what we've come through, I just think it's important to continue focusing on this area and see if we can do better. So
Certainly.
it's just a pitch from me on this topic.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Breckus.
Yeah, I had a quick question on slide 72 where it says expenditures by fund type projected 18-19, and then it showed 37 million flowing through HR from internal service. Is that workman's comp, or what is that slide? It's a big number.
That encompasses group health insurance and workers' compensation.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. I didn't realize it was booked through HR. But that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Shivi, any questions?
Nope.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
With that, our next department is the municipal court. I believe we have Mr. Tuttle here to present for us today.
Excuse me.
You're right. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, good afternoon. Madam Mayor on the phone, members of the City Council. My name is Steve Tuttle. I'm the administrator for the Reno Municipal Court. The Reno Municipal Court is a four-judge limited jurisdiction court. We are supported by about 46 highly skilled professionals. We process almost 20,000 cases each year, and we have 6 unique specialty courts. The court is actually established by Chapter 5 of the NRS, and it has been adopted by the Reno Municipal Charter. The court's core services are to impartially adjudicate misdemeanor crimes and code violations, provide supervised rehabilitation supervision to those needing treatment, operate in a cost-effective manner, and to provide safe and equal access to justice to all that's coming before the court, to maintain the integrity and independence of the judiciary, and also to preserve the confidence and respect of those coming before the bench. We have 3 primary goals for the coming year. The first is to maintain a model court environment. We define a model court environment by one that other courts want to emulate. Reno Municipal Court is such a court. Over the past years, we have received numerous phone calls and several site visits by other courts wanting to know how we do business. Our strategy to meet this goal for this year is to continue to provide a quality customer service, both online and at the front counter. We are taking steps now to try to develop all services that do not require court appearance online. So hopefully that individual that has any dealings with the court can just log on and take care of business and eliminate the need to have to come downtown. Our second goal is to make operational changes by introducing new technologies without impacting the court calendars, the performance of the court, or its budget. This past year, we introduced text notification, which actually is gaining national recognition. We actually gather information in the field, phone numbers, have them opt into a text notification, and then what we do is about a week before their hearing date or payment date, we actually notify them as a reminder. We will continue to strengthen our community relationships by working closely with the city management. We're holding kids court. We've adopted a local schools. We're making presentations at local high schools, and we're participating in special events. One of the things I'd like to bring up is just last week, we had 2 of our marshals participate in a Tip a Cop charity event where they went and served meals down at Famous Dave's Barbecue. And they basically were tipped, and all those donations went to the Special Olympics. Our 2 officers who worked 4 hours earned over $2,000. Our second goal for the year is to expand our use of technology. Over the past 2 years, whenever the court was faced with new challenges, we looked first at technology to help us resolve it. We have been able to keep down our operating costs and our requests for additional personnel to 0 by utilizing technology to a greater extent. We will continue to do this we will continue to utilize technologies, and we will continue to audit all of our active cases and workflows to ensure efficiencies and to maintain compliance with all state and federal laws, as well as Supreme Court mandates. I actually would like to take this opportunity to inform you that the Reno Municipal Court was actually the first court in the state of Nevada to have its case management system certified by the Nevada Supreme Court. So what that means is that The information that we provide on our workload and statistics have been proven to be accurate, timely, and of course necessary. Our second goal is to continue to advance our electronic case file. This is our project where we are going to a paper-on-demand environment. We now do hold all of our court records electronically, but we'd like to take this one step further. And by that I mean we would like to be able to digitally sign these documents or file stamp the documents without having to pull them up, print them, having the judge actually sign the document physically, and then rescanning it. We would like to implement the electronic signatures and file stamps. We will also continue to upgrade our recently redesigned website. What we did about 6 months ago is looked at our site, see what areas had the most areas of interest, and then we developed easy to navigate paths to those interests. Online payments being one. It's prominently displayed on the website now and very easy to get to make online payments. We're going to continue to monitor this site and see where our traffic's going and try to develop other pathways. We also will continue to utilize the court's recently installed digital signage. This is LCDs that we have put into the lobby of the courthouse that when individuals are coming in, we have directions and helpful information to get them to the right location. Our third goal for the year, and probably the fastest growing, is our specialty court programs. Reno Municipal Court is committed to this game plan. We do believe that if we can break the cycle of addiction early at the misdemeanor level, then we can save significant time and money by not having to deal with repeat offenders in the future. It is estimated that it costs about $750 to arrest somebody. This includes the officer's time in the field, the transportation of the individual to the jail, the booking time, and just to house that individual for one night is $750. The majority of the people that are placed in a specialty court program are repeat offenders. On average, these people have 3 to 4 arrests per year. So our goal, currently we have 6 active programs within the court right now. We have over 260 people participating in the specialty court programs. And last year alone, we graduated 82 people. These are now sober citizens that are going out and finding productive jobs and supporting themselves. This means that 82 people are no longer being arrested 3 or 4 times this coming year at a cost of $750 per person or per arrest. We will continue to identify new strategies to support the specialty court participants. We have programs already set up for housing placement, job training, and life skills workshop. And we also introduced a kind of unique benefit to those participants that have full-time jobs, and this is a mobile breathalyzer. We have a device where you can use your cell phone. You attach it to the cell phone. We take a recording of you actually blowing into a straw. The reading that from the breathalyzer is sent out over our cell service, and we can pick that up immediately to see if whether or not you've been drinking. Reno Municipal Court is also one of the very few courts throughout the nation that was selected to receive specialized training and veteran treatments. So we are currently going through the training now, and we do hope to open a very small veterans court in the fall, probably targeting about anywhere from 8 to 15 people. And we will continue to support the homeless, Project Homeless Connect. This is where a judge takes court offsite, usually to the homeless shelter or to the Reno Event Center. We get meet with the homeless face to face. We work with their court case. We quash warrants, and we try to get them into some sort of community service where we can take care of their court matters. So in closing, I would just like to say that the court's final goal is to continue to work in partnership with the city and to support to the best of our abilities all the difficult decisions around this budget. So I will answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Dewar?
I think I'm good. I will just make this comment. I'm amazed at the level of technology that you guys have seemingly been able to implement at all levels. And I really think, in my opinion, I don't know how you compare with all others in the country or even the state of Nevada, but it seems very cutting edge to me. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, thank you, first of all. And I will say that, yes, my background was in technology. I was brought on board to really take the court in the technology way. I agree with you that, and everyone else, is that we have to be able to meet our customers in the environment that they are, most comfortable in. We actually have to set up 3 different processes for our customers. Anyone over, and I'm just using this in general terms, anyone over the age of 60 really likes to meet with you face to face.
Right.
They like hard copies. They like to see you sign the documents. They like to prove that their case is closed, their matter has been taken care of. Anyone from the age of, say, 25 to 60 really likes to be able to get online on a PC. They want a desktop machine that they can go to. They want a big printout and see what that the case has been processed and it's been closed. What we're working on now is actually mobile applications.
Right.
All those that are under the age of 25 really do not want to. They want the text messages. They just want a reminder. They want PayPal. They want to be able to pay quickly and spend minimal amount of time interfacing with anyone at the court.
Right.
So we are trying to take everybody's needs into consideration.
All your different
and
clientele.
building pathways for each one.
And
of
how
them.
they need to be communicated with, and they're
Correct.
in a comfort level for them. I was very struck by your comment about communicating via text earlier in your presentation. That's something we expect out of our dentist office, our hair cutter. They send you texts about your appointment. All you have to do is say confirm, deny, whatever. It works, right? I mean, it's a quick and simple.
I believe it works very well, yes.
Why spend a lot of time on the phone or any time at all doing that kind of stuff? Like, you just asked and answered, right? So,
The beauty of it, too, is we can set it up in our case management system where it automatically just generates the text message and sends it out without any type of human interaction.
so the metrics on this are going to be interesting as well, to see if that actually improves how many people show up, for their cases. Do you have or more people on time, more people actually show up, less forgetfulness, all this rescheduling? I mean, it's improving the efficiency of the court, I've got to imagine. I don't know if you have any numbers or metrics or anything.
Not at this time.
Yeah, but
we are collecting them. Yes.
Okay, be interesting to know. Anyway, you guys do a lot with not a lot. So
Well, thank you.
I think we know that over here. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman McKenzie, do you have anything?
Well, just real quickly, your specialty court program is just totally awesome. And when I was running for office, I was doing a ride along with RPD, and we had a drunken, disorderly individual that we had to take out to Parr Boulevard. And it was kind of interesting. After the election, I got invited to one of your specialty court graduations, and that individual was graduating that day. And I had known him before he started having problems, and he was a real good construction worker. He ran heavy equipment, and I saw him about 2 weeks ago. And just so you guys know, he's now running work for a contractor here in town. He's got his life back together, and he told me he has not had a drink since the night he was arrested. So that's one of many events that you guys have created in people's lives that have changed it.
Well, thank you. And it is very rewarding to see these individuals progress through the process and obtain and maintain sobriety. And I just want to put a quick plug in for specialty courts. It costs us about $1,200 per client to run them through a 15-month program. Once again, if you just these are individuals that are being arrested multiple times a year. So that's 2 arrests. 2 arrests and 2, holding them overnights just to get them credit time served to back out there. So although it may not appear that we're saving any money on the front end, on the back end, it's tremendous. We estimated one time, and this was about 2 years ago, that since we started specialty courts, we have saved over $15 million.
And the benefit to the community and to the individual is regardless of the cost, is a value that we can't replace. So,
That is very true. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Do we have any questions from Madam Mayor?
I do, thank you. Good job, Mr. Tuttle. I appreciate it, and completely mimic the same comments from Councilmember McKenzie, how important those specialty courts are. With that being said, so I'm on the CJAC. So can you list those 6 specialty courts?
Oh, absolutely. Department 1 has a DUI court, so those are individuals that were arrested while operating a vehicle.
Right.
Department 3 has a drug court. Those individuals arrested for drugs or what have you, or were under the influence of drugs when the crime was committed. We have a co-incurrency court, which is basically more or less individuals who are having difficulties in their lives and have turned to a substance to try to get past that difficulty. So not only do you have to break the addiction, you have to identify their one issue.
Sure.
We have a young offenders court. Those between the ages of 18 to 25, we're trying to treat a little differently. And then we have what is referred to as a high-intensity court, which is our individuals that are homeless. They just, they look, they've been through the program a couple of times. People have given up on them, so we have now taken them in. It's a very small court. It's about 10 people, but I would like to tell you that we already now have 3. We only started this about 6 months ago, and we already have 3 of them working.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 6?
Well,
I hope.
that was 5, I think. 5.
Oh, and then we have a train court. That's what I knew.
Train, yeah, okay.
Train is to deal with the homeless problem.
Yeah. Okay. I really appreciate it, and I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with the level of the judge's commitment to all these specialty courts. But the one that I'm really going to focus on, and Judge Riggs, I know that she's been very passionate about it, but because we are in budget and we are talking about it, is the specialty court, she's really interested in is the community court. And so I'm curious as to if you have discussed allocating money towards that and what you think that cost might be, because I think it's really interesting. And you talked about, I think you said it was $750 a day it costs?
Correct.
To put someone, okay. So what's interesting about that would be subject to the downtown core and to work in correlation with the BID. And those are also, they're misdemeanors, but they're repeat offenders. And what they're finding is that these people are missing court dates because those court dates are, they're far out. And if we can get them into, turn around into court right away, then we don't need to take them, A, to the jail, and B, it would allow for, because what happens is by missing those court dates, they go into warrants. And so then these individuals continuously are being arrested and they're being, up at the jail. And so if we can get them services because we're doing a quicker turnaround time, and these are the people, like I said, in the downtown core that could work in conjunction with the BID, I think we could, see some success with that population. So I guess I'm curious to what your conversations have been as far as, what allocating that money might look like.
As of right now, we have not gotten to the budget level, and
okay.
But I will tell you that when we look at these specialty courts, especially like the community court, I think the cost of that would be rather low, because what we're going to do is just treat it as another docket. And so what happens is a judge will just take that on as another responsibility. We are now communicating with Bill Thomas and the BID about how we can get these people, adjudicated and then get them into a community service program and as you were saying, really minimize the turnaround time where as soon as these people are reporting to court, you know, they're released from jail, they report to court, we have them in community service very quickly, like just 1 or 2 days afterwards. So I don't really see that the cost of the court is going to be much at all, because I just think we'll absorb that as another docket.
Okay. Well, that's great to know, and I appreciate that. And I would just stress to council members, this is something that we all, I think that we should be watching closely, because it could save so much money, and I think there's a lot of different benefits to this. And I will throw it out there. Judge Riggs told me that they are looking for a location, and Hopes actually had offered their location, but that building had issues with ADA. So, but they are looking for some place to put this court, this specialty court, in downtown, so that it, you know, it could be very accessible to these individuals. So I'm looking at other things, but I want to throw it out there to the council. If you have any ideas or thoughts, and I've reached out to the Masons. They do have a building downtown, so we'll see. But I think that piece of it is going to be important, so that they have a location that they can work out of downtown. And so they are struggling a little bit to find that. So I'm just going to throw it out there to council if you have any ideas. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have any, excuse me, any other questions from Mr. Tuttle? Okay, see you none. Thank you for joining us today. I think with that, we've had a request to take a 15-minute break. It is 1:50 by my watch, so let's come back here at 5 after 2 so that folks can get up and get a chance to stretch. We'll be back soon. Thanks. Okay, let's bring the meeting back to order. We'll bring the meeting back to order, and next up, I believe, is the city clerk's budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council. Ashley Turney, city clerk, for the record. Keeping this very high level for council, as that was the intended purpose for today's meeting, as we know that we have additional meetings coming up that are going to be much more in depth. As you are all aware, there are 3 divisions within the city clerk's office. First is council support, which is what we do here every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Keeping track of all of the official journal meetings, laws that change, codification of those. Additionally, we oversee all of the 57 boards and commissions that the City of Reno currently has. Central Cashiering is a second division within the City Clerk's office. All payments and all fines, fees, and taxes are coming through our office in some capacity or another. Additionally, we do administer the residential parking permit program. The third piece is the records management. Currently, all of the public records for the City of Reno are centralized in the clerk's office, except for our PD. We'll be talking about that at a later time. Additionally, document and retention management of all documents in the City of Reno also lie underneath us pursuant to charter. Our primary goals for the upcoming year, though they look small based off of volume, are actually quite large in their magnitude. As council has seen, deferred maintenance has spread throughout the entire City of Reno for many years during the recession, and our records were also attributed to this deferred maintenance. As previous in the year, council approved contingency funds for a new electronic management system. This has been something that has been in the budget requested for the last few years, but money just didn't allow for it. We are now in a dire situation, so it has to move forward. So working in conjunction with IT, the goal will be for the next 12 to 18 months to bring that online and convert all of our records that are currently managed electronically. It should be noted that the electronic management record system, that does not entail all of the City of Reno records. We currently have an estimated over 5 million images that are still on microfiche. Every day that goes, those records become harder to access. It's very, very manually intensive, but this is a very expensive process for us. So we just keep chipping away at it as we can. Additionally, our goals are to continue with state adherence of the laws, codification of the changes made by council. We've learned a lot in the last year about interaction with outside entities as far as our internal goals and how those can be impacted. One of the things that we are hopeful this year is going to be DMV holds. I feel like we've talked about this every year since I've been here, and this was actually a goal from the previous clerk from 2013, I think. The DMV has had a bit of a setback with their contractors and companies that they're using, so that has in turn slowed our process down. And then continued efficiencies and goals through transparency and access of records and communications for outside constituents as well as council support. That's it.
Councilwoman Breckus.
So, at some point in the last year, I think that the 3-month calendar showed a revision to the retention policy, but I don't recall that ever coming up to the council. Did we redo the retention policy?
So you have not seen it come forward yet because we've been waiting on the state. Typically, the state can update their retention schedule a few times a year whenever there's law changes. Every time that we've been getting ready to bring that forward to council, they have started a new comment period to change some of the existing retentions. And our
Okay.
goal is to mirror what state retention is.
Okay.
So we are waiting. There was a comment, they're still actually in a comment period. We submitted our comments for recommendations to retention changes for best practices. And once we hear back from the state archivist, then that will be formalized and then brought to council, as it does need to be adopted by ordinance by council.
Is it imperative that we mirror the state? I mean, we have different, good government daylight provisions from them in a number of ways.
Correct. It's not imperative. It is ideal in a lot of capacities just from a timing standpoint. For example, if we do not mirror any retention state law or policy that they've set forward, we have to have approval by the state archivist before it comes to council for ordinance adoption and change.
Okay.
So essentially, if we mirror what they do, we bring forward an ordinance that says we're mirroring what you're doing. As they change, we change with that. If we want to hold something longer or for less time, then that has to be individually adopted by the archivist. It's quite a bit more lengthy of a process, and
Okay.
then gives a little bit less mobility to us for council to make those changes.
Okay. My other question is, I understand that, a lot of the influx of the records request is related to due diligence to real estate transactions. And I'm wondering if that's, true, and do we have any ways that we're working, to that to point people in direction, or do they have Is there an expediter out there in the private sector who's a go-to person who, does that service because they know how to find it in an open source? Or are we just sending people to open source of that nature?
We're finding of the public records that are currently coming in, about half of them are for not necessarily due diligence, but a lot of individual homeowners looking for permits, looking for building plans, looking for C of Os. As far as outside entities doing that due diligence, we do our best to try and point them back to the website so they can do some of the zoning provisions themselves.
Yeah.
Just as you know, state law is very, very restrictive on what we can charge for the public records.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time associated with it.
I'm surprised that half of it is really homeowners looking for the permits. I live in an 80-year-old house, and I think I check my permits maybe once, and maybe everyone's decided they have to do that, but that's a lot of volume. I guess one thing I would like somewhere, and I think I've said that before, is uploaded the pending records request, even if it's just something that we can see, so we can know who is looking for records and what type of records are being looked at. I mean, I have no problem with someone putting a records request in for any emails I have. My calendar is up on my website, everything. I don't care. And so it's not personal, but it just helps the council, I think, know that, are they geographic based? Is there something going on in a neighborhood where everyone in this HOA is looking for something? Maybe that would imply then that there's some contract liability cases going on there. And so I have asked for this before, and I'm just wondering if, even if it's scaled up, like how the police chief sends us, records requests crimes by ward or incidents by ward, I think that it would be good if your office could prioritize some communication to us on the nature or the frequency, the volume of the records requests that are coming in. I think that would be good information at our level. Thank you.
They're currently divided based off of department, essentially. They're
Okay.
not geographic. That's something that my staff, we keep our finger on the pulse so that way we can touch base with all of the department heads or
Sure.
the city attorney's office if we see an influx of something. We really are not seeing one particular driving force. They're one-offers. We don't have, one constituent asking for continued information. It's very rare that someone wants to build a permit. They want to build a fence, so they want to pull any permits to make sure that the last one was done correctly. It's that type of thing. Is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
sure. I mean, I could even, I could work with you and be more specific. It's just, year over year change. And then, if people are calculating hours or revenue or something, but even a pie chart, and we've seen this for Reno Direct, but a pie chart of the departments where it's farmed off too would be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah, that's something that we're
Okay.
pulling. We've just been live with the system we're a little less than a year and a half at this point. So we don't have a full 2 years of data at this point to even do a year over year. We launched October 1 of 2016. But that's something that I'm happy to bring to council and go over with you guys. That'll be something that you'll see in my review next week, goes over some of those changes from last year.
Councilman Dora.
Yeah, thank you. Overall, great job. You'll hear that again next week, as she said. But, I think that some of this homeowner stuff is, we're a very active market. And so often real estate agents, it's on the responsibility of the homeowners to prove they got a permit for XYZ change. And I've had friends that got something permitted, made the change, but the office that permitted it, not even in the state, lost that, and they ended up having to re-permit it after the fact to show due diligence for the sale. Because homeowners are like a lot more knowledgeable, and they're doing their due diligence, and they know if they go to sell, the permits are going to be required to show. So that could be some of it. I was going to ask you, I know you've had great challenges with these systems, and I didn't know if that fit into your world as far as any improvements here, because this is obviously where you aspire to vote this way, to use it. Even, for example, Councilman Bobzian's acting vice mayor temporarily today, then Mr. Delgado. But there's no screen that says who's waiting to speak, for example, that you can just flip that over to whose screen that's showing on. I don't think. But that might be helpful to help in running the meetings. Or the thing where you have to come and reboot me. What's that? Oh, you do have that? Oh, yeah.
So whomever is chairing the meeting, so we set it on our end that the chair has.
Oh, you do
the
have
access.
No, you're doing a great job. The point. Okay, I like that actually. I thought it was going very smoothly this way, but you were, and you fished and you got it. The fish was hooked and has been landed, and but anyway, I just wondered. You have spoken to me, and I assume others, about some of your challenges with this system, and then also the boards and commissions. This seems to be, you didn't mention it that I heard, but I might have been out of the room, but you have been challenged, very challenged with, you said some of your staff are tearing their hair out, and it's just like the bane of their life is the people coming on, the people going off, the rules of that board, which are all different than the rules of other boards. Do you want to speak to that at all?
So the underlying comment that I will make, which is an interesting connection to a previous statement made by council, the software is an Acela platform.
Okay.
So the issues that we're having with other Acela platforms seem to be bleeding over. There was recently an acquisition by Granicus about 3 weeks ago, which is the model leader for software. So we have some calls set up with them to try and determine if these issues that we keep seeing as an ongoing basis are going to be corrected, or if we need to stop throwing the good money after bad and pull the plug and find some other options. And we've been working with city manager and IT staff to look into other options from a software standpoint.
Okay.
Just because we're finding that what we're paying for is not working in the way in which I think that it should.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of challenges to where boards and commissions module was supposed to be very streamlined, and it has created double the amount of work for my staff and redundancies. And that may or may not lead into one of the PCRs that you will see on there is my chief deputy will be retiring after many years with the city. I know. I begged her not to go. She may or may not have said boards and commissions are the reason why she's leaving, but we're hopeful, and I'm excited for her next step into retirement. But boards and commissions are an ongoing challenge, and we would like to find a better way to manage them. And this software is currently not doing its intended job.
Right. I mean, you'd almost be better to just use an Excel program. I mean, seriously, just.
Right. We have some options as far as we can go back to the Reno.gov web-based model that we used before, and I've been in talks with OCCE as a backup plan for that option. So we have that. It's just, in a perfect world, it would have been nice to have everything line up in one place for constituents to be able to access all their information in one place from a transparency standpoint. But when the software is not delivering, our hands are a little bit tied regarding that it's coming. We don't have that. There's really not a lot of opportunity for changes on the software. It's boilerplate. This is what it is, and there's no customization for us.
Right. I mean, to get an automated note that you're no longer on a board, for example, just at a very personal level.
Right.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? There's no way to reapply. Does anybody even know? But it's automated.
Right. I can't control when that message comes to you.
Exactly.
I can't change the language on it.
I know.
So it's been a great opportunity for growth and understanding in my department to find out how working with outside vendors can change and slow your progress or move you backwards in areas that you can't control. So that's part of what we're looking into, are the other opportunities to either find some different avenues or hold some feet to the fire because of those different avenues that need to be investigated.
Well, I knew you were on it. It seemed like a good time to talk about it at the budget.
Thank you.
Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Bobzien. So this kind of brings up an interesting question. City Manager, Councilman Bobzien had asked that we get a presentation on Acela when we were talking about community development. How many other departments within the city are dependent on the Acela software, and how are they managing with them? Maybe we can include that as part of the presentation. So we look at the overall picture, and it's
great idea.
of its great failure.
Seeing no other interest at the dais, is Mayor Sheevy with us on the phone still? She's dead. Okay, good.
She is not called in.
Okay, all right, we got that taken care of. Okay, thank you so much. And moving on to our next department.
Hello.
Hi there. I wasn't
Hi.
really sure where you were going
Best
either.
for last.
Had enough. I'm leaving. No, just kidding. So the next department, not quite the last, but is the city manager department. And as you all know, we have a number of different sections to the city manager's office, including administration, which is the senior management and administration, citywide strategic planning efforts, coordination and support. That would be largely myself and our assistant city managers. But we also include intergovernmental relations, which covers our lobbying efforts, both at the federal, state, and then working with other local governments, which we call our regional coordination, and of course other special projects that come up, whether those be medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, and other items. We also include the Office of Arts, Culture, and Special Events, including both public art, special events. I know many of you are involved with those committees and with those functions. And then the last two being the Office of Economic Development, our business development, redevelopment, and downtown revitalization, and of course sustainability, which includes a number of programs that you're familiar with, but also includes the relief and re-energize programs, sustainability, climate action, and collaboration and engagement, not to mention, of course, waste oversight and recycling as well, which isn't listed there. It's difficult to list out all of our goals, so I just went with the top primary goals. I followed my own directions on 2 slides for the departments. And those are, some of those are to update, improve, and train employees on city policies and procedures. As many of you know, when I came in, we reviewed all of the policies and procedures and found many of them were old, outdated, or lacking. So we are currently involved in doing that, furthering strategic planning throughout the organization, and looking to, in the next year, as Ms. Breckus mentioned earlier, perhaps bringing someone in to facilitate a strategic planning discussion with you to refine some of those goals that you set for yourselves, I believe, 2 years ago. Improve performance management and data-driven decision-making. That's something we try to do every day. I'm always asking for the data behind some of the decisions that I'm being asked to make. To support process improvement, streamlining efforts, innovation, and best practices. You heard some of that coming out of the Community Development Department with the Lean Six Sigma training. We thought that was a good place to start, but I think it's applicable elsewhere in the organization. And then one of the sort of intangible also is to develop a positive and professional organizational culture. Can't speak today. That's, I think, one of the bedrock goals that we have really here is to improve that organizational culture. And you've seen me speak about that, write about it, send it out to the organization. And I think that's a day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month that will continue to be our goal. And it has to be something that we focus on going into the future and always have in our minds. Of course, in the next year, we're looking at the federal and state legislative platforms, heading into the next legislative session. From the arts area, of course, maintain our role as a leader in arts, culture, and special events. As you know, we just kicked off the bid. We're in that process of setting that up, so that is one of our primary goals as well. And obviously reducing climate pollution through a number of different efforts, relief and re-energize, Reno being 2 of the bigger efforts that we have on those goals. So again, these are just very high level, sort of broad goals for city manager's office. and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for our manager?
I'll make a comment.
Councilman Dorr.
Thank you. Good job. I like these goals a lot. I mean, they're very reflective of the things that we've talked to you about, things that I think keep bubbling up to the surface. You've hit on, it's like you knew what I was going to say to every other department and put it into yours here about the culture, the efficiency. You've highlighted the training, data. I mean, these are things that I think all of us really admire. And one reason we even got elected is to try to help the city get to these kind of next levels. I think most of us are familiar with Six Sigma. We've used it in other organizations. So kudos to you for introducing that here. And, kudos to you for also the metric conversation that we had with a couple of the departments, because that really helps make us better decision makers if we have things that are less fuzzy. I mean, you need both qualitative and quantitative information to make better decisions. So I am very appreciative of that. I guess I would have one request in the sustainability area, and that is to consider how we can pull the let's say, the relief efforts together even more under Lynn. Might be an idea. We have a couple different departments working on that. We have parks, of course, the urban forester. We have OCCE working on that, because a lot of it's an education process. We can't do it all. We can just do a little bit, but we want to inspire our residents to be planting, because, we want to inspire the nurseries to participate. There's a lot of work to be done there. I know that Lynn is just one person. And, I want to think about that, about how we can support her, because I think these sustainability initiatives, each one of us have had, some role in bringing those kind of things forward to you or to the staff. And, data is going to play an important role. We just agreed to do a survey for waste management. It's another thing she's managing. But we can at least make smarter decisions based on both qualitative information coming in, let's say, through the SurveyMonkey, paired up with, statistically valid information, pairing those things up, being able to enable us to make a better decision. So bravo to you on that. But again, on relief, I would love to see maybe it even more under her umbrella, because it is kind of disparate through the organization. So it's just something to think about, if you could give some thought to that.
Absolutely. And I don't think I see, there
Lynn's
she
here.
is. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but I do know that Ms. Barker had launched a committee made up of individuals from all of the different departments that are touched to kind of corral a lot of those efforts. And I don't know if I did it justice, but
I could just add one
Sure.
thing. Yeah, Lynn Barker for the record. I appreciate your comments. So I'm in the process of working with about 200 people across our community to create our first Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, and increasing the urban forest canopy and the relief program is one of the core elements of that. So once we have the plan in place, then we'll have to, as an organization, figure out how to get it accomplished.
Yeah. Okay. So when do you think the plan will be done?
Well, we're meeting on the 26th of April for a half-day workshop, and then it'll probably be presented to council within a 2-month period after that. I
Wow,
would say.
fantastic. So maybe by the beginning of this next fiscal year, July, we might be ready to take that organizational look and just see if there's ways, because, I am sending a lot of people, whether it's the LDS Church or the Rotary or neighborhood groups, the Atlantis. I mean, all of these people are wanting to partner, and this is a lot of effort on top of the Parks Department, who are struggling, for example, just to do their main mission, every day, and maintenance and management of our parks, 86 parks, as I understand. And we're growing. As each development comes on, we're adding some parks. So what I worry about is that is an overload on their already stressed system. And so maybe if they could offload some of that underneath the umbrella of the plan, and pull, have your team and work it, and I would have a place to send, all of these people who want to help and volunteer and be involved. We could capture those. So that, anyway, that's something on my mind, so thank you.
Okay, did that generate any other questions, or are we good to move on to the next presentation? Looks like we're good. Okay.
All right, next presentation is from the City Attorney's Office, and I believe this is our last presentation for the day. You're welcome, City Attorney Carl Hall.
Good afternoon, City Council members. Carl Hall for the record, Reno City Attorney. The City Attorney's Office provides a full range of legal services to the City of Reno, including legal advice, counsel, civil litigation, criminal prosecution, and risk management. The City Attorney's Office consists of 3 divisions: the Civil Division, the Criminal Division, and Risk Management. As part of each division's mission, the City Attorney's Office emphasizes staff development, training, education, and the practice of preventive law. Our Civil Division, we are in charge of the Reno Municipal Code update, general procedures, appeals, adult business regulations, sign code, affordable housing, litigation, employment and labor, civil rights. Some of the cases we're involved in is North Valley flooding, of course, the adult business regulations and litigation, sign code, and solid waste litigation. Criminal Division, we partake in aggressive prosecution of driving under the influence, DUI cases, aggressive prosecution of domestic violence cases, aggressive prosecution of graffiti and nuisance cases, and specialty courts. I have deputies assigned to each specialty courts, and we're heavily involved in assisting our judges in determining a proper course of action with those folks that are involved in specialty courts. And I just might indicate on the DUI cases, just to give you an idea of how many we have per month. In February, we had over 400 DUI cases. In March, I think we had something like 370 DUI cases. And then you noticed from the presentation from Mr. Tuttle that the municipal court has processed approximately 20,000 cases per year. So, the criminal division is very, very busy. We also have the risk management division, which minimizes losses and costs related to property, liability, and claims. Just to give you a little bit of information on the risk division, last year we had 70 claims submitted. I think we dismissed 38 of those. We paid probably 9 or 10. A couple of them are in litigation. In 2018 so far, I believe we have 16 or 17 claims have been submitted. As far as litigation, we've got approximately 40 pending cases in litigation. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions for our city attorney? Councilwoman Breckes.
Yeah, I just want to confirm on the zoning code update, your office is not the lead on that. It's CD, right? And they've hired a consultant, and your office is a helping entity, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you. Good job, good presentation.
Thank you.
I'll just make a comment. 40 cases, that is a lot to me. I mean, that's a big workload. I don't know, they probably stretch over a variety of subject matters. And I wish there was something that we could do here to better help you with that. I mean, whether it's staffing or, this is just first time I ever had this thought right now when I said those words. I mean, I don't know if in your office, if there's a person that, before let's say somebody files a lawsuit and it's just out of the blue, we've seen those, just boom, we didn't even know that was a problem, and boom, they're filing a lawsuit. And is there a way to have, even before a lawsuit gets going, some kind of intervention, mediation, discussion with the people that filed the lawsuit about what their real underlying issues are, what drove them down this path? I mean, this is the path in America, right? You can't solve your problem, you go sue somebody. And we often seem to be the recipient of this suing. And whether it's a HR issue, whether it's a development issue, I'm just thinking right now, a couple flooding issues, a couple of them that come to my mind are drainage related. I just thought of 3 that perhaps with a little bit more, maybe they weren't able to work it out with staff. And that's a few of the issues, actually. They weren't able to work it out with staff. So they're suing us. But I wonder if once it gets to you, if you had some kind of professional that could now intervene with the staff and with those persons that filed a suit and maybe do some figuring out of what the problem is, really. I call it a different kind of specialty court intervention, whatever you want to call it. But has that ever been done anywhere? Or?
You know, when we're advised of an issue that may result in litigation, then certainly we try to resolve it. And that happens from time to time, especially when we get claims submitted, you know, those demands that are made for, so if there's minor flooding, for example, or sewer backup, or
Right.
car accidents, those types of things, then, of course, we engage in negotiations to find out, you know, the extent of our liability, and once that is determined, whether or not we're going to pay and how much we should pay and that sort of thing. So, of course, we engage in that.
This is
settlement
not a
type of
criticism. I wondered if
evaluation.
there's something new, a new idea, a new kind of people, like before there were specialty courts, there weren't.
Of course,
you know.
on the flip side, there will be cases where they don't call us and they just submit a lawsuit, and then they
That's
say,
what I'm
"Hey."
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, boom.
And so, you know, when I have advance notice, of course, then we try to, you know, resolve it as economically and professionally as we can.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm actually communicating, but I guess I'm thinking, you know, whether I've heard mentioned before here, ombudsperson. What, you know, I'm just thinking about a different kind of person that could help all of us when these lawsuits, because a lot of them just come out of the blue, literally. If there's a way, I mean, I know that there's a process laid out that you have to respond, and then you have to, in so many days, and you have to do a this, and you have to do a that. And while all that's going on, I just didn't know if there's a way to have another kind of conversation at the same time. So it's just something to think about. I don't know if it's been done anywhere ever, but.
Well, we always have those conversations, and then there's always an opportunity to take it to court and either go through a mediation process or
Yeah.
an early case conference to determine, you know, the party's strengths and weaknesses and try and resolve it. So,
Yeah.
you know, we always engage in those opportunities.
Okay, well, it might be something for the manager to think about. It's just, is there some skill set, something we can offer, ombudsperson, somebody who could reach out and say, hey, you know, obviously you have a problem so bad that you felt like you needed to sue us. We haven't even heard from you. You know, what is going on? And is there something we can do to divert? Call it a diversion program. I mean, something, you know, that is used elsewhere. That is something totally new, a new idea of reducing this kind of caseload and fix some problems. So that's just something I'll think about myself. Thank you.
Councilman McKenzie? Nothing. Okay. Well, I guess with that, we're done with
I'll
item.
ask one more question. I mean, are you asking for any more attorneys or anything?
I have a PCR request for a secretary on the criminal side. I have 3 secretaries. I also have 3 victim advocates. One victim advocate is grant funded. That grant is running out this year, and that position I'm not looking to fill. However, with my 3 criminal secretaries, they are stretched so thin that it's very difficult when somebody goes on vacation or somebody's sick or what have you. That really puts a load on the other gals, and you know they're working weekends, they're working nights, and so it's been very stressful for them, and so that's what I'm looking for in terms of additional staff.
Additional administrative
Yes.
support. God.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Item B2. Oh, wait, do we have any public comment on item B1?
We have none that are present in chambers.
Okay, very good. Okay, item B2.
All right. Deborah Lochner, Finance Director. So for item B2, we really just want to have a discussion amongst the council on what your budget priorities are to give us some final direction based on what you've heard, so that we can go back and see how we can put some of that into our overall budget document. In addition to that, we wanted to lay out for you the next steps. So on April 15th, we do have to provide our tentative budget to the state. It's not a budget that cannot be changed. This is just the tentative preliminary information we provide to the state. In the first and second weeks of May, we will have those detailed budget workshops where we talk more about the numbers that are included in the budget. This is also where we're also provide you some of the information on public engagement. May 23rd will be the public hearing and budget adoption, and our final budget is due to the state June 1st. And so with that, it's an opportunity for us to hear from the council as to what some of your priorities are, so we can address that as we go forward.
Okay, we'll kick it off. Councilwoman Burgess.
Yeah, thank you. So, looking at my calendar, I only see meetings on, the 9th and the 11th for the workshop. That's correct? Those are the dates? Because she said the first and second weeks, and I just see it. I only see it on that second week. Not to,
And so when we put together this presentation, the goal was to have them a week apart, but
Yeah.
because of calendars, they ended up being 2 days apart.
Okay, I see that. Okay, I might have a conflict on the 11th, but I'll have to get to that. I guess here's some things: is we have a $5 million hole, so give us direction on how to fill that. I think is thoughts right out of the chute, maybe even ahead of time, on how to fill that, because I really don't know. I mean, I heard originally, I thought maybe it was a one-on-one briefing, is, it's been filled, the holes, we have a structural deficit, there's been a lot of tricks, one-time efforts, we've run out of one-time efforts, so how do we fill it? What I would prefer not to see is descending into $20,000 here, $30,000 here, this, that, that's a lot. Is there revenue is a question. I'm concerned also that the strong narrative of the council is, let's just put hope that someone with a white hat is going to be down in Carson City and get property tax reform. I just don't see it. And I think that we always kick that off a little bit, that property tax, if just this happens, then we'll get property tax reform. So I don't know, do we wave the white flag and say, here's where we're at? I don't know. I'm afraid of wanting to nickel and dime it, and two, hold our breaths for property tax. Those are the things that I don't think are realistic. Are there, and so, I mean, in the past, there's been people who have talked about looking at the Building Enterprise Fund, sweeping that into the general fund. Maybe that's an option. But I just don't know. Is it surgical approaches that you're going to come through with some whole options? I mean, I'd like to see that first meeting when I sit down, having an idea from you how you say we're going to fill that immediately. Is there some time maneuvers, some time sensitivity that we can get to during that year, but the plan is at least set out? I don't know. I really am, trying to figure it out. Is it redevelopment a piece of it? Really looking for some direction here. Thank you.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Oh, is there an answer?
For the record, Saber Newby, I don't know that there's an answer at this point, but we're taking that under advisement and we'll provide that to you. We've already discussed about a couple of different options for closing that gap, certainly, and we'll bring those back to you, whether those mean slowing the growth of costs, reallocating costs where we would have otherwise maybe expanded costs. I think I spoke to you earlier about the Position Review Committee, PRC, which I've already instituted to slow the filling of some of those positions and really reevaluate whether or not every single one of them is necessary, specifically with respect to any that have a fiscal impact, a greater fiscal impact through say, reorganization or reclassification. So those are some of the things that we've talked about that we can sort of manage through. There will be some things that will be up to you from the perhaps revenue growth area that we can take a look at, and we can certainly bring those to you at your next meeting.
If I could just add one other thing, and other regional revenues that are in place, whether it's, some flexibility with RTC funds to get them off their ridiculous. We only look at, 20% of the street network with the 30 cents plus, 40 cents plus a gallon we're taking at the pump from drivers. And that would, even if that just gave us flexibility to take the 2.1, 2.3 on the TUMWA and backfill that into the general fund, because we have very few earmarkings, but we do earmark the TUMWA fund to the streets. And that revenue is something that we can get through to go back to our home jurisdiction from the RTC, which is a creature of us, or is it over on the RSCBA side where they get about half of what we get in property tax, just on lodger's tax, and that is above and in addition to the indebtedness that they have. I find those more viable revenue sources to do the jobs for Reno residents than I think the political reality of property tax reform at any point in the next 2-4 years, really. So maybe I'm wrong, but I'd like to see some scouting out of that.
A lot of it we have to go to Carson City on as well.
I don't believe so. I do not believe so. I believe RTC has the flexibility to agree that this measurement that they only tap.
Speaking to the other.
Oh, the RS. I'm not even so sure about that one, frankly.
Councilman McKenzie, any thoughts on this one?
My priorities going into the budget year is to, number one, try and increase our ability to provide public safety, but given the structural deficit we have, it doesn't appear we're going to see the filling of fire station vacancies and increases in our police force that we need to provide public safety in our community. I'm really excited to see how the city manager sharpens her pencil to give us a balanced budget at the end of this without cutting any services. And if she does that, she's a queen in my book.
So I guess the one comment that I would offer, and this is more just to shine the light on the dynamic rather than I'm advocating for this. I want to make this very clear, but this harkens back to a lot of discussions that were had during the downturn at the state level. We all, and this is as a compliment to the manager, as a compliment to staff across all the departments, get very good at doing, more with less, or maintaining, holding the status quo with less. So good at times that I think we insulate the public from just how challenging the fiscal environment is. And I know this is a conversation all of us are having with constituents on an almost daily basis, where there's this disconnect between seeing, very obvious economic vibrancy in our community, this roaring comeback, all these great things are happening, and yet the services are not keeping up with the demands placed upon our city by the growth, by the uptick in economic activity. And we have an obligation to vigorously support legislative efforts this next time to fix the broken system that we have, and we're not going to shy away from that. And I think we have to be mindful of the fact that as we're getting super creative, there's only so much insulating we can do in terms of not sharing with the public just how challenging these situations are. So I just want to make sure that that is in play and that is in the mindset that, rather than trying to spread everything so thin that, we sort of create this illusion that, oh no, everything's fine, nothing to see here. We can only keep doing that for so long, right? So again, I'm not advocating that toward any specific direction as to how the hole should be filled, but I do think, we're living it right here, and there's no sense trying to sugarcoat it to our constituents.
Okay.
Councilman Dorr.
Yeah, thank you. I thank my colleagues because many of your comments are things that I want to echo. My number one is balancing the budget, and that's why I wanted to at least have a moment where you said something about how you're going to work your magic, because that's extremely important, that we live within our means. And, there's the cutting side, and then there's the increased revenue side, and I think Councilman Breckus started hitting on some places to go. I think that some other places that we should be at least aware of and exploring are the room tax piece, because I don't think we've heard a lot so far in these budgets. It may have been at the very first meeting, and I don't have it in front of me, but the room tax piece, how that gets divvied up and worked out, and what are our priorities for that. We've become more aware that it can be used for a broader range of things. It sounded like previous councils maybe had said this much for parks and this much for art and maybe whatever, but I want to be intentional about that and understand it better. The CDBG, we have our committee, and the committee is working. I haven't had an opportunity to engage with that committee or know what they're finding, where the needs are, where we need to be focusing there. I too think public safety is extremely important, and it's very hard to have that conversation about growing, whether it's in the south, in my ward, in the north, in Ward 4, or in Ward 1 out of Verdi, without making sure that we're keeping a pace with our police and fire. So I've made this comment before. A lot of the basics that go into new housing, like water, they have to pay for that. Sewer, they have to pay for that. The road, they have to build that road or pay into an impact fee. It's set out. Parks even has the $1,000 a door. What doesn't seem to have an ability to be taken care of is the police and fire aspect of the growth. And so it worries me, and I wonder, and that's why I want to push in one of our BDRs, or not even our BDR, but at some point talking about having access to what the county has, which is a revenue source at least to help pay for fire. So that's something. The second part of public safety for me is this whole thing that we're about to experience, which deals with flooding and stormwater. We put it in the master plan. Sparks was very proactive. In adopting a $5.41 fee per home on every resident to help pay for stormwater and flooding issues. We don't have that. We have a lot more people in Reno than they have in Sparks. And they did it in 2008. And now we are 10 years down the line, and we still didn't do it. And I can only imagine if we too did it in 2008. Because, if it keeps flooding like it did last year and like it's doing this year, and the frequency, it's going to stay top of mind with people. And I think that, this is a small number, $5.41 per home, but it ends up resulting in millions of dollars that they've been able to put to their systems. So it's just another thing to think about. And so those are some of my kind of bubbling up issues is, we put in the master plan, and now we need to at least think about starting the planning effort for the stormwater. It's going to be a multi-year, decades-long process, but at some point we have to start it. And if the fee helps pay for that planning, so be it. I'm fine with that. Of course, I'd rather also be fixing stuff as we go. That's how I did the flood project, by the way. I knew that people would not have patience for the planning. And the planning and the approvals would take a long time. And so what I did there, and what I think we can do here, and I think we already are doing this a bit, is to do pay-as-you-go projects that we don't bond for, and that we, so that people see we are working on this as we're also planning the big picture. So we're fixing the small while we're planning the big. So those are some of my things that are kind of bubbling up. I already mentioned about the, potentially a small contract for historic resources. There was another thing that came up here where I thought, wow, a small $50,000 contract would really help solve that problem. And maybe it's working in the sustainability, getting someone to assist Lynn on some of these initiatives. I don't really know. But anyway, thank you for the time. And I know those are kind of bigger picture things. They're not like, oh, and I'd like, a little more money for Robin Hood Park or something, which I would from the next CDBG grant funding. But I think there's probably time and place for that. So, okay, thank you.
Well, Madam Manager, clear as mud.
Yes, thank you for the input. We will go back and I'll be working closely with the finance staff, and we will most likely also check in with you each one-on-one before the next meeting, just so that we can kind of give you a preview of what we're thinking. I've told staff many times, and I'll say it on the record, that if we get to the end of this budget and anyone says that this is a staff-driven budget, I am going to become bald from ripping my hair out. So that's my aim. I want to make sure that everyone is engaged.
We don't want that to happen.
Yes.
We don't want this to be a staff-driven budget, and we don't want you to go bald.
Right, unless it's for a good cause.
But no, and I'll use that to segue, yes, and I'll segue that into my own kudos to staff and all the department staff that brought forward a number of very good budget presentations, very illuminating, very sobering, unfortunately. But here we are, and so we carry on. So thank you to everyone that worked on this.
And if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Further kudos, because I have asked, and I think several of us have asked for this level of detailed presentation so we could better understand. And, once we know a little, we want to know more, right? We got the big picture, now we want some metrics to go along with it and so on. But kudos to this team, you and our finance team, for being able to deliver this to us. I know it was very difficult to schedule and to get us in attendance, but I hear what you're saying, that you want our input, and that's how we do it, is by showing up and being part of this process. And it's very illuminating to me to hear the different department heads and yourself say what you think is important, because even though it's not a big strategic plan, at least we're having a matching of expectations and understandings about where we're all going. And I think it's extremely helpful. First time since I've been elected, we did it. I appreciate it.
Councilman McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Bobzien. And one thing that Councilwoman Dewar brought up, the other ideas of funding, and we talked a little bit about the bill about the parks, and I know that you've been inundated as well as I have with numerous people that are interested in increasing funding for the parks. And that's a self-driven program for them. So possibly we could do have Mr. Gillis give us a presentation on how, if somebody is interested enough to form a park district around their neighborhood park so they can have funding to improve that park themselves, how they can do that. That's pretty much a self-driven thing by the neighborhoods. If they are truly interested in their parks and are willing to invest in them, then that's a method that they could use to generate their own revenue to do their improvements on the parks in their areas. And I don't think that that's the cover-all solution. But if we get this inundated with the request for more money in parks, and I'd like to be able to put more money in parks as well. But there's a lot of other areas that are vital services that we have to get money into before we start cutting more money out for parks. But that's an opportunity for the neighborhoods to help themselves if they're truly interested in that.
Thank you, Councilmember McKenzie. And I had previously spoken with Mr. Gillis on a couple of occasions about coming before you and giving a presentation on the enabling legislation. The bill number escapes me now, but But that is one of the options that we can do, either for a particular park, for all of the parks, for all of the regional parks. You know, there was some conversation earlier today about the tax structure, property tax structure in our state, and I think everybody knows that it's broken. I don't think one person believes that it's working as it intended to be, and yet here we are with the same tax structure. A good friend of mine once told me that you have to participate in your own rescue, right? And I think that's kind of where we are right now, is participating in our own rescue. And so that could be one avenue for us, and I will bring that back to you so that you guys can have the information, at least going forward on that, among other ideas and thoughts on how to rescue ourselves.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have none.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go to general public comment. Do we have any general public comment? We have none. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'll see you later. Thank you.